When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Become a part of it. Embrace it. 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 When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you.
Peace and
power. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
We are in
Black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. One of our Babas, one of our elders. And what I wanted to do today is come in and basically talk to you. And family, go ahead and share this video with your friends, family, loved ones, those who need some cognitive restructuring, those that we have to reawaken or awaken their minds to information that is a little bit more healthy for their minds. So family, again, I appreciate you coming out. We got a lot of things to discuss. In fact, I might open it up today, to have this discussion, or, how it flows, as Sister Queen says, jump in the chat and don't hold back, because let's have a talk and discussion today. And I want to have this discussion because thank you for that. So let me go ahead and say it again. So family, I want to talk to you about this ethnogenesis conversation is going on. There's been a lot of confusion. Some believe that the ethnogenesis is something genetic, and they're trying to frame it around genetic variables. And that's just not what it is. And then there's others who are trying to, what I call, hijack what has already been done. But again, I want you to jump in the chat and don't hold back. I don't know how far I went with how much I said when I was on mute earlier, but I want you to jump in the chat and don't hold back. And we want to have a conversation that requires us to slow down a bit and really think a bit. And I mean, that's one of the things I like to do. I like to think about things. And I want to let you know that ethnogenesis is a social scientific construct. Yeah, it's a social scientific construct. And I think that lots of times we don't know how to make that shift. And what do I mean by a social scientific construct? I mean that it is one that is measuring social variables, not those that you can touch or put under a microscope or what have you. It's measuring our social reality. And there's been a lot of conversation around Pan-Africanists and Pan-Africanists not calling themselves Black, and they're just saying we're African or we're African American and all types of misinformation. And family, I think what I said when I was on the on mute, I was asking you, how do I sound? I want to make sure my mic is not too loud. I want to make sure it's not too low. I want to make sure I'm actually coming through the mic, because The last time I was on, I realized I was just coming through my camera, and I prefer to come through the microphone. If I sound okay, push 1. If I need to adjust something, push 2. But again, there's been a lot of conversation around this ethnogenesis, and people really don't know what it is. And I'm saying I've done the research, just some basic research, and I've come to realize where the term comes from, what it means. When I first started hearing people talk about this ethnogenesis, and the way they were explaining it in a way that it had something to do with our genetics, and that's just not what it is. It is a social construct, and people can do it. People can define themselves. In fact, we've done it before. So ethnogenesis is nothing new. It is not new, and I would argue that this ethnogenesis that is called FBA is not needed in the way that they say it is. I mean, if you want to do it, that's fine. I have no problem with it holistically. I just don't think that it is needed. There's a lot of mismatch of information and all types of things. So again, I'm going to go back to this idea that Pan-Africanists where did you come up with that fangled idea? Where did you come up with that? I mean, like, talk to me, family. Like, thank you for the 1. Where did you come up with the idea that Pan-Africanists don't call themselves Black? What? I mean, I was listening to a conversation yesterday, and they started saying, like, you know what? We began with, we were calling ourselves Black, and then we were usurped with this label called African American. And that Black, from their idea, their standpoint, better describes us. Because the argument is that we are the only Black people, meaning Africans in America or Black people, Black Americans that come through chattel slavery or what have you. Not the indigenous, not the, well, they'll say yes. Some of them will say the indigenous people who were here before, and then also the explorers, you know. But some, again, I agree, some don't subscribe to that. But again, where did you come with this idea that Black was usurped by African American, by Pan-Africanists or what have you, and it's a governmental setup and all these type of things, and but Black better described us and all these type of fangled ideas. But then you give examples and say, you know, this one said we was Black. Martin Luther King said we were Black. Then they say Stokely Carmichael said we were Black. Like, I'm like, okay, that's what you are. Your analysis is already off when you got to Stokely Carmichael. If Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, says that we are Black and it best describes us, and he says Black power, we have to understand where he's from. You understand? If that's your argument, like your argument is not necessarily completely rational. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try. I think you should try. But the reality is you're not trying hard enough. And I get it. And this is not totally, for me, this is not about, I just want to be clear, this is not about genetics. This is not even a historical a debate or what have you, because I don't care. You can make up your ethnogenesis can be mythological. It can. I'm not arguing that. It totally can be mythological. It doesn't have to be real. But what I am saying is some of your supporting facts that you think are facts and not a part of your mythology is off. So the fact that you would say someone like Stokely Carmichael, with some other people that you threw out there, I can't recall exactly who it was, but they were also people like Malcolm X in the Nation of Islam. And so when you think about that, the Nation of Islam said we were Black. And the Nation of Islam is also It's for black people wherever you are. And then some would say we're the only black people. We're the only black people in America. We're the only real black people and no one else is black. Where they do that at? I mean, I get it. I do understand. To some degree, I understand where that could come from. Because I do hear us lots of times in the United States say, black people then Jamaicans, black people and then Trinidadians, black people and then Africans. And in fact, we're just getting a little better now, because before we used to just call everybody either black or African. At one time, we just thought that everybody was, not me, but lots of us, and I hear people still to this day often think that everybody else, quite like we think all people from Asia are Chinese. We quite think that people from outside of America that are black are all African. People used to really think that everybody, they couldn't tell the nuance or the differences between Africans and Jamaicans. So, we have to be more nuanced with the way we do things. And it's not true. But I do get what you're trying to say. So let's get started, family. I want to, we want to speak about this topic, FBA versus African American. And I'm going to try to see what you put in this chat board today. Yeah, they said Marcus Garvey, but yeah, Kilimanjaro. They actually said Marcus Garvey said we were black. Let me get to that. Let's sit there for a minute. Does that really make it more clear when you say black? In fact, I think black American is definitely more easily hijacked than African American. And why do I say that? Because black, for some people, even in research, we use that as like a catch-all. Not necessarily African American, but we do use, and I'm not saying never, but typically we use African Americans describing the African or black people who had their experience through chattel slavery here in the United States. But black is more of a catch-all term. Now, this doesn't, and I'm saying in the United States, this doesn't mean that everybody ascribes to black, that everybody understands race, because to use the term black would be, it denotes what they call a race or racial category. To use the word African American would be more of an ethnic category or nationality. But black is more of an umbrella term. But you're trying to suggest to me that this is a term that is more descriptive of those people whose family or their ancestors came through chattel slavery and all the other two things. You can have it. Your mythology part, and the myth is that there were Aboriginal blacks here. You can have that. As a social scientist, I get it. You can do that. Then also we can talk about then the explorers. So now these people, from my standpoint, would not be better. I lost my train of thought, but let me see what y'all saying in here. Peace to conscious Black African diaspora. All right, let's see who here. Proper perspective. Hey, if you want to jump on, cuz I sent you the link. But nonetheless, if you just in here doing your thing, that's fine as well. One is a historically accurate term, one is made up term with misinformation as its base. I don't know. I am not an expert or a expert Black is not a catch-all. See, and then when I hear stuff like this, right, it's kind of like when you say things like this, one is a historically accurate term, and one is a made-up term with misinformation as its base. Again, it lets me know that you do poor social science, because all terms are created. There's no term that hasn't been created. If you want to use the term, if you want to use the thought or the idea of made up, I mean, none of these are like just terms that they all are social constructs, racial constructs. So whatever kind of construct, they're all constructed. No one came to the universe and said that there's no genetic black test or ethnic black test. It doesn't exist. Now there are patterns and traits that we can see that's common within these particular social categories. But again, getting back to the conversation of tonight, we have to stop conflating ethnogenesis with biology, and because they're not the same. Again, ethnogenesis is a anthropological and sociological term. These are terms from the social sciences. I think some people don't realize that anthropology and all social sciences interact and engage with, let's say, the natural sciences, biology, these type of things, but they are not the natural sciences. They are social science. That includes anthropology. There's crossover, and there might be even certain aspects of sociology that deals with biological and natural scientific variables or factors more than others. That's with psychology. That's with everything. Like, just because we talk about psychology and how it relates to the body and biology and neuroscience and all that type of thing, it's still a social science. So we have to, and the difficulty about social science is that you can't touch it. It's not perfect. You have to operationalize it. So every term is created. If you want to call it made up, I mean, okay, but all the terms are made up. So let's see what else we got here. Okay, so you say I failed to pick up what you're putting down. Let's see what you got there. Pardon me if I did that, but even if you didn't mean it that way, it still helps someone who may struggle with seeing it that way. Let's see, you failed to pick up what I was putting down. African American is biological, FBA is not. Again, African American is biological. That's going more to, that's speaking to more what I said earlier. I heard some people say that ethnic labels are biological. They're not necessarily biological. They're not. They're social constructs. Social constructs are real, though. It doesn't mean, it's just like biologically, you can measure someone within these groups, and you'll find out that perhaps genetically they have similar genes. But there's those who are also outliers, or those who don't fit that genetic pattern. Those who have maybe, let's say most African Americans have at least 75% West African heritage or what have you. But there's those who also are identified as African American, and you can't really argue it, and it's the reverse. I remember Rock Newman, he did his DNA, and he was really surprised, and I think he had to really deal with the fact that he had a lot of
European ancestry, but no one would say that, well, we'll say anything. But for the most part, we understand that it is a social, political construct. And Rock Newman has worked and also has lived his life as what we call African American. And we won't deny that. Because it's a social construct. It's not, it's not perfect. And that is the difference. But you can find patterns that are similar. But we have to be able to understand the difference between social constructs. And that is the point pretty much of this particular conversation. That there's a difference. And it doesn't mean that social constructs aren't real. They are. We need them to kind of make sense and meaning of the world, to help us engage. Social, political constructs are needed. Again, that's why I'm arguing that FBA, again, is an ideology. It has an ideology, because without it having, it would be no need to bring about this term FBA if there was no purpose for it. The reason why we have an FBA is because there are people here in the United States who feel that they need to be more definitive about who they are. Excuse me, for various reasons. Some are truly genuine, whether I agree with them or not. Whether I politically agree with them or not, there are those who are genuine in their desire to delineate. But there are also those who are, and I say pretty much the creators of this are more like the game creators that I shared a video with you all not too long ago, that actually benefit off of this, and they create the game and cause confusion. I'm looking for the clip here. But
you said that racism is a mental disorder.
Yes.
I was interviewing a gentleman the other day, and I brought that up in a conversation, and he said, well, racism is not a mental disorder. He said racism is very ordered. He said that whites, Europeans, know exactly what they're doing, that racism is a political and economic convenience. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking about. If you talk about I think of systems as having designers, as having advocates, as having players, and as having pawns. This is from game theory, and I borrowed that from Bob Williams, who analyzes systems in that way. Everybody is not a game maker or a game designer. So the game designer might be conscious of creating a racist system, whereas the advocate probably becomes unconscious. They buy into the system that was created by the designer. And so the advocate is a racist in the sense that I'm talking about it, or the dealer, those people who carry out the rules of the master in the system without really knowing why the master created the system, or even that a system was created. They just simply inherit a belief system and an action system, and in that sense, they are players in the game, but they are not the game makers. So okay. I make a distinction.
Now break that down for the person on the street one time.
Right.
Go over that again.
So there are some people who are puppets.
All right.
And there are others who are puppeteers.
Thank you. Free your mind.
I'll try to do a better job.
Okay. Free your mind, Rich.
So there are some people who are puppets and some people who are puppeteers. Those puppeteers are the creators of the game. I won't even use the name today. I'm going to try to stay away from names. But those who have created these ideas, FBA and ADOS, I question their I question their motives. I question their motives. And I think it's beyond questionable. But I have to be clear that there are people who follow these people, whether they consciously know they're following them or not, or who espouse the information they lay down that mean well and are confused with this information. And again, that goes back to what I'm speaking to even earlier, that many of us are conflating genetic variables and social variables, social constructs. Hey, family, let me know how I'm sounding. Peace, Dr. Ball in the house. Yes, Lester Velt Middleton is definitely underappreciated, but very appreciated at the same time. Let me know how I'm sounding here. Let's see. I kind of wanted to kind of go back and forth. You all are calling out some of the the creators of this thing. Dr. Ball says solidarity of diaspora Africans to correctly straighten the backwards hashtag ABF, Africans being freedom. Africans bring freedom. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out again to Dr. Ball. Dr. Ball will be on in a few weeks, family, coming to really talk about the psychological warfare that's happening through his lens. And again, as another social scientist, we have Dr. Ball will bring that framework, and we need to lean on people who knows the difference between variables that are biological or genetic and those are social. None of these things are absolutely they're not, you don't find them in nature. You find them out of nature's mouth. When I mean human beings, human beings create every word that you hear. Or maybe you might say, well, some of it came out of, naturally babies do this and all that type of thing. But nonetheless, let's move. So some in the social sciences use what they call a constructivist lens. And I'm going to put here, a constructivist understands ethnicity and identity as historically produced through social processes, institutions, power relations, and meaning making. And again, let's go. Today's topic is FBA versus African American. Let's talk ethnogenesis. And my major argument is that FBA is not needed as it pertains to what people are describing as ethnogenesis, because it doesn't do anything. It does not create a new group. It does not create a new ethnicity. It hijacks one that's already there. So again, constructivism does not mean that identities are fake. It means that they are socially real and historically made. This is what we were talking about. And I have a source there. But I want to see how I do this. I'll go here. I want to read this. Our dear Baba Amos Wilson said this a long time ago, because I'm hearing these conversations, family, that again don't make sense. I'm hearing that Pan-Africanists don't ascribe to the term Black American or Black, which I'm like, where they do that at? Where do they get it from? In fact, let's think about it. We have Dr. Ball here. I think he ascribes it with various labels, but we have one, as I understand, is a Pan-African revolutionary or something like that, or international, all the things, right? Socialist, all the things. But the core thing I want to suggest is that it's Pan-Africanist. But one of his media platform, he and others' media platforms, their collaboration is called Black Liberation Media. That right there alone lets you know that that's not true. It's not true. So now I'm going into the falsifications of African consciousness, Dr. Amos Wilson, another Pan-Africanist, African Senate elder Baba, He says, he speaks on in his book, The Falsifications of African Consciousness, on changing our name. He says, we don't have time to talk about Jesse Jackson and his African American campaign and the New York Times, which feels we are not African American until the New York Times says we are African American. Let me say that again. And let me back up. This book, I think is 1993. And he's talking about Jesse Jackson and what took place just in 1989, him and his movement on trying and really pushing forward towards that. So yeah, this book's 1993. So again, we don't have time, Dr. Amos Wilson says, to talk about Jesse Jackson and his African American campaign and the New York Times, which feels we are not African American until the New York Times says we are African American. I want to read this excerpt from January 31st, 1989, the New York Times. This is Dr. Amos Wilson. A movement led by Jesse Jackson, which is interesting in that it is a total interpretation and distortion of history right there. To call blacks African Americans has met with both rousing approval and deep-seated skepticism in a debate that is coming to symbolize the role and history of blacks in this country. Okay, so let's just look at this for just on a surface level. This is not a new argument, but I want to argue that many, even though it's not new, they have it wrong. Let's push forward. He goes on to say, Dr. Amos Wilson, even these people recognize that a name is connected to social role. A name is not just something you call people, but the name a people are called signifies their role. Let me say it again. A name is not just something you call people, but the name a people are called signifies their role. Therefore, a change of name represents a people's attempt to change their role and position in the world. He says some Negroes think to change our name is just some foolish game we're playing. And I hear the FBA is right now. Well, let me be very clear. No one's saying you can't and we can't collectively change our name. Dr. Amos Wilson is very clear on that. It's not a futile endeavor, and it's not something to be taken lightly. But we have to be clear on why we're changing our name and if the political reason is warranted and if it's real or we're being misled and taken advantage of for someone's new scheme. And I argue that the game creator or the puppet master or the puppet masters with these, as Brother Dr. Ball says, these reverse hashtag organizations or groups or whatever you want to call yourselves, that's exactly what the leadership or the influencer, if you don't want to call them leaders, I think one of them at least goes by influencer. Though he or she that is influencing your thoughts, your feelings, and hence your behaviors. It's not about that, he says. Even other people recognize that. This change of name, if it comes, will be deeply felt. Think about it. He's saying if it comes in 1993, and if what it implies becomes a true part of the African-American personality, represents fundamental changes in this world. So he's saying it's not a light thing. And a name is very essential and very important. We have to be very strategic in how and why we do these things. He said it's not a game we're playing here. Identity is very important, as is the idea that Black people, again, Dr. Amos Wilson, Pan-Africanists, he used black all through this. Black people would dare to name themselves. Let me say that again. It is not a game we're playing here. Identity is very important, as is the idea that black people would dare to name themselves. He says whites recognize that as an incursion on their power of naming and an incursion on their power of domination. History is what creates a shared identity in a people. It is based on that shared identity that they act collectively. To take away a people's history, to degrade their history, is to degrade their sense of shared identity. And we're getting somewhere here. Shared identity is to remove the basis upon which they must behave collectively and reach their goals collectively. Again, yeah, he's a Pan-Africanist, and you can hear it in the language. That's why the history is rewritten and why people get alarmed by it. When we suffer from social amnesia, we forget the debt we owe to past and future generations. We then misinterpret our accomplishments as solely our own individuals' achievements. In other words, he's saying is wiping out history. He says, I remind my college student audiences that you're not here in this college just because you're smart, because you come from the right family, because you scored high on the SATs and all that other stuff. Blacks have scored high on the SATs since the beginning of time. We've had good families and the right families from the beginning. We've had 4.0 students from the beginning. We had all of that, and we were still kept out of the university. So this goes back to many of the people who fight and say that, look, we got to do more than get good grades. This leans too much of what you hear many speak about when they say, look, it's going to take more than an economic approach. This leans to more than saying you just got to work harder. No, this is a real war, and we have to be clear about that. They will tell you if only if you got good grades. But look, Dr. Amos Wilson's making it clear here. You're here because people who didn't score anything put their bodies and their lives on the line to see that you got here. So again, he's not only speaking about, and again, as a Pan-Africanist, you got to be clear. He's talking about our ancestors on these lands. I know you often say that Pan-Africanists do not pick up and lift up and speak to those of us here. And it's clear that he's speaking about those of us here if your reading comprehension is working. And he goes on to say, but he's not negating the fact that you also have ancestry in Africa. And you owe them, he says, something for that. If this let me see. I lost my place here, y'all. If this institution decides to put you out, it will be these same people that you're calling FBA, that we're calling African Americans or Africans in America or whatever you want, however you want to term it. But I want to argue that African American already serves what FBA is espousing outside of the vitriol. Outside the vitriol and the separation from our global family. Why would I? In fact, it serves more than that. But see, FBA is not an ethnogenesis. I mean, let's say it could be one, but it won't be the one that they're describing. It won't be the 48 million people that they're saying are FBA. Let me keep going. And I'll try to get past this quickly. He says, if this institution decides to put you out, it will be the same people who will be up here to see that you get in here again. Some of you want to forget that history, and then claim you owe them nothing when you make your couple of little bucks in front of. So anyway, let me just skip past that paragraph. He's saying, look, we owe our ancestors. He says, you want to act like revolution is something that's temporary and not permanent. It is permanent. You forget your history and forget who you are and lose your obligation to the past, to those who made your success possible, and do not fulfill your obligations for those to come, some of whom will be your own sons and daughters. And again, I think that this is clear. And what I'm taking from this, it aligns with some of the things I say. I think many of us who subscribe or ascribe as being FBA, in many ways, thought that revolution was that it was not permanent. You want to act like revolution is something that is temporary and not permanent. It is permanent. It is a fight that we must continue. We think that this FBA identity or naming will make it. I don't know what you think, but I think for many of you, you think it's going to make it easier. I get it. We want it to be easier. But again, you forget your history and forget who you are and lose your obligation to the past, to those who made your success possible, and do not fulfill your obligations for those to come. You want to say, let's integrate into this society, the same society that has oppressed us since we've been here. We want to assimilate and take our place as permanent second-class citizens. I said third class or fourth class citizens, some of whom will be your own sons and daughters. In other words, you're going to give up on your ancestors have fought for you on these lands, not to give up. Your ancestors have fought for you on these lands so that you can continue to fight. When I was growing up, they used to always say, a luta continua, the struggle continues. But again, we are growing tired. Many people are growing tired. What do I mean by that? We are burnt. Many of us, I'm saying, who ascribe as FBA are tired and just want what they think is the easy way out. And again, I'm not talking about the puppet master. I'm not talking about the puppeteer. I'm talking about the puppets. See, because the puppet master is working in tandem or serving as an agent of white supremacy. You know, I know people ask some said I'm on the wrong side here, and they think that I could be won over by FBA. I'm a little bit more clear than you, maybe a lot bit. You're not seeing the picture. Somehow you think that ascribing and actually integrating or assimilating as Africans here in America, that is enough. I know it's not enough. When we suffer from social amnesia, we identify with abstractions. Listen, this is Dr. Amos Wilson, y'all. Let me go back. When we suffer from social amnesia, we identify with abstractions. He says, I am not black, people would say. I am not African, people would say. I am human. I am a human being. I am an American. See, again, this Pan-Africanist brother, Baba Elder, ancestor, scholar, is saying that, in other words, and I'm just saying this supports that Pan-Africanist people do ascribe to the term black. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where this came from. Oh, what do you identify with? You don't identify with African American or Black American. Like, come on now. And the black somehow makes it more specific. It doesn't. Maybe if you put the foundational part on it and you explain it or what have you, but it's already. And then you might say, well, on the census, people get confused. Like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? That has nothing to do with your political. I don't know what the political goal. The census kind of conflates all types of categories, although they've made it more stratified recently. There's what I mean, like they'll ask you if you're white American, then I ask you, like, I mean, like, do you hear other people? I mean, like, it doesn't. The census is a self-reported type of thing anyway. People are saying they're white and they're not even white, or maybe they look like you and they say they're white. Look, so okay, the census is horrible, but I don't think the census gets in your political way. Maybe you can tell me how. They're not using the census to to suggest that you will or will not get reparations yourself. I mean, and then again, it's more stratified as of recent. Jamaican and Trinidadian, Caribbean, like all that, Nigerian, like there's other categories that even flesh it out more as of recent. Again, when you suffer from social amnesia, we identify with abstractions. I am not Black. I am not African. I am human being. I am an American. Sterile abstract identity. The closer we get to it, the less we see of it. And the more we recognize that it has no meaning. What is that? Who is that? What does that stand for? What does it mean? It's empty. And people who identify themselves with these abstractions are only empty and experience their lives as empty, as people who have no feelings. They identify with the abstraction so as to escape feelings. Some of these people say, I'm just American. And this is what he's speaking about. We are the only Americans. We're the real American. Like, you're doing a lot here. And you think try to be successful with that. You're like they're saying Pan-Africanism is a pipe dream, but the things they're trying, if they really think it's going to work, in fact, if you think that FBA in the 48 million Africans or Black people in America are going to identify as FBA after going to the FBA website, and then I heard another brother say yesterday he's going to create his own version of FBA because he doesn't agree with the Foremost Leaders website completely. So you already having problems with the term FBA. You're already having problems. So, I mean, and I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, like, the best to you. If you think that 48 million Black people in America are going to subscribe to FBA and the rhetoric and the ideology that is there, you are the one that is living a pipe dream. You are the one. And in fact, it's so bad because it's politically weak. I would rather struggle with with being Pan-African in African unity than struggle with FBA that's not going to bring about anything, because it's a dream. It's not real. It's not going to work. Just go and look at the leader. Yes, he's a leader. I mean, the influencer. Let me say that. Go and look at what the influencer laid down. Go and look at the website. No one's going to take it serious. You think that somehow that someone's going to take FBA, and again, I say it like, yo, if you want a shot, go and join ADOS. I think they do a much better job in skewing the information. Like, yeah, go join ADOS. Like FBA, my FBA family. If you want to go and if you want to be like an isolationist of other Black people, I think you would be taken more serious if you joined ADOS, which I don't think you should. But at least someone would take you to some degree more serious. FBA is embarrassing. I am being honest. It is embarrassing. It embarrasses me that my people, those who come through the ancestry of those who've gone to the transatlantic experience here in the United States, would make up such foolishness. It embarrasses me to see you take this seriously. It is an embarrassment that you think that somehow, I mean, I feel for you. I'm serious. I feel for you. That you think that somehow it's going to accomplish what you think that you set out to accomplish. There's no real serious people that take that serious, especially with that ideology. And those who, there's those who are confused about the ideology because many of them have taken people on their word. It's just a lineage. That's what they say. It's just a lineage. No. When people start digging deeper into the ideology, you think that's going to get somewhere? I mean, your leader, the creator, the patent, the trademark holder, you think people are going to take that serious? And just because a person says they're not a leader, you are foolish enough to believe it? No, I get it. A lot of men saying, I don't have no leader. And so it feels good to have another man say that I'm not your leader. I get it, but he's your leader. You don't have to listen to what he says, but you do, because you repeat everything this person says, and you might disagree with something. But you're still following and even defending the foolishness on the website. The 3 stars on the website that we come from these Aboriginal African, Black people that always existed, and not know that that is psychological mind manipulation going on. Like, oh, well, they're like, well, you know, the definition is here. It stops it. No, stop it. It says that those FBA people come from, and this is not the ethnogenesis because it's not a genetic thing. Again, ethnogenesis is not genetic. It's not. You might find within those people who identify as FBA or African American a pattern of traits. That's different. But you cannot genetically say some people won't fall into the pattern. That's what I'm saying. It's a social construct. Ethnogenesis is a social construct. FBA can create what they call an ethnogenesis, and maybe that's what they're striving to do. But I would argue that it is at best a sub-ethnogen. It's not even there yet. Let me back up. But at best, what it could possibly pull off is a sub-ethnogenesis, but it doesn't even get that far because it's not distinguished enough from what we already know is African American. It is not different enough in a real sense. It doesn't have any great difference between what we call African American, besides some fallacious points. And I do get the idea, like, do you really think, like going back to some of the nonsense, that people really believe that Black American really makes it more specific? Like, you think that people are calling like Kamala Harris African American or Black? You know, like most would probably call her a black, if they wanted to do it, they would probably call her a Black American. Although I know there'll be people to call her African American as well. But Black American and African American, for the most part, but specifically African American, speaks to those people whose ancestry came through the transatlantic experience here in the United States. I am not saying that people don't have a variety or varying ideas of what that looks like, but that's in all social science. But the majority, that is what happens. You're not going to get 100%. But most people, when they say African American, they know who they're talking about. Even Black American, they know who they're talking about. But specifically African American. If you talk to somebody who moved here from the continent or the Caribbean, again, they're not going to be like, I'm African American. Maybe you have some who might do that, but that's not the norm. It's not what you see in general. Yeah, and social science, again, it's about, it has to be generalized. It's not about these anecdotal poor forms of evidence that you put out there. See, this is what this person said. No, that's not how it works. When you look at the research itself, if you look at any journal articles, if you look at any real research, they separate these groups. They define these groups. Do they ever conflate these groups? You'll find where they will conflate groups. In fact, many times when they conflate the groups, they just call them Black. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not true what you're saying. When they are speaking about African American, they might say Black or African American. And it's really that Black piece that is more inclusive. I don't know why that's so hard to figure out. Even in the census, when it was not as stratified as it is now, people were checking that box for Black. Or maybe some African American, African. But for the most part, it was the Black. Because they were taught when they got here, they were Black if they knew it or not. They were taught that they were Black once they got here. Even if they agreed with it. Because many people don't. Many people don't agree with it. Some do, some don't. Some actually evolve and change their minds and realize that this country, because again, Black is a racial category, whereas African American is more of an ethnic category. We conflate them and flip-flop them and all that type of thing. It does. It happens because most people, even in research, they sometimes get it wrong. Until someone has to peer review it and say, well, look, what are you saying here? We have to be more clear. We have to operationalize this. But again, let's go back to FBA versus African American. Let's talk ethnogenesis. Again, I want to be very clear that an ethnogenesis is not a biological thing. It is not a result of DNA. It is a social thing. Okay? And FBA has not done enough to distinguish themselves from what we call the African American population. They're getting there. And they might just get there. But again, it will not be the 48 million people they're looking for because their boundaries are too closed. They have, like, even on the website, it tells you that as an African American or FBA, not African American. African American can practice any tradition, religion, whatever they want to practice. They can practice anything. You can be Buddhist, you can be atheist, you can be agnostic, you could be Muslim, you can be a variety of beliefs systems. But FBA says that you can't be you can't be all those things. In fact, if you are, you're a traitor. So there's nothing wrong with FBA identifying itself more in that way. We just have to realize that that's not going to be enough for the majority of the population, because majority of our people here in America that look like us are Christian. And I think Islam is next. And they will call an FBA on the FBA website. They would say that this is anti-FBA. And it's nothing wrong with FBA making these statements and even these ideological decisions. But again, you have to admit that it's an ideology, or it has an ideology. It's a group. People will say stuff like it's not a group. Is African American a group? Yes. They'll ask the question, is African American a group? See what they'll do. They'll try to juxtapose it next to African American. And do African American have an ideology? Well, African American has, the African American populations has a variety of ideologies, and then some core similarities as well. But FBA, again, the difference is FBA they created strong boundaries even within that the Black population here in America, that who ancestry came through, who's come through the transatlantic experience, chattel slavery here in the United States. So let's keep going. Let's see what we got here, y'all. Let me see. Where do we stop? Let's see. I might not have to read everything anyhow, but let's just back up a bit. In fact, they use their abstract identity to escape their responsibilities to their own people and escape the pain and struggle that happens today to be a part of our situation. Y'all pick back up. He says here, I love the challenge of being African in today's world. It's wonderful. This is Dr. Amos Wilson, y'all. I love digging in my heels against the impossible odds of being Black in America. You hear what I'm saying? Again, they say that Pan-Africanists don't ascribe to the term Black. What does Dr. Wilson say here? Let me read it again. I love the challenge of being African in today's world. It's wonderful. I love digging in my heels against the impossible odds of being Black in America. What greater challenge could we have in life today than to be African? What greater testament to our heroism than to overcome the problems that face us today? What greater opportunity can we have to transform ourselves and transform the world in the process? Why would we wish to escape this kind of challenge? Again, why would we wish to escape this kind of challenge? It's too wonderful, too magnificent. We should eat this kind of challenge for breakfast. When we become socially amnesic, we forget our location in time and space, because history is about locating oneself in time and space. History is a grid, a set of coordinates that permit the individual to locate himself, herself in reference to other points in the world. History is a mathematical concept. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a geometrical concept. It locates and positions one relative to other things. And family. So we are supposed to negate our history. And then the same people say, well, we're not cutting ourselves off, but every time they're using terms like African booty scratcher. I've been called an African booty scratcher. I've been called a tether, and I'm straight from the United States, both sides of my family, Black American, African American. Oh, let me say that again. I didn't even mean to say it like that, but listen to me clearly. Black American, African American, and even politically, I can identify as an African, period. Politically, I can do that. But I also ascribe to Black American because I understand the essentialness of being clear. But I also ascribe to African American, which I think is more clear than even Black American. And I'm going to argue it is more clear. And it captures us more ethnically than the word Black American. I would argue that. Just from the research that I've read over the years, because the books I've read over the years, and the fact that you say that that Pan-Africanists don't use the word Black. Where do you get the red, black, and the green, and the black is for the people, and green is for the land, and red is for the black? Like, what are you talking about? What is going on? Where are we getting our information or misinformation? Or who told you something different? Like, where do you get this from? I'm Black and I'm proud. Then you use Stokely Carmichael and a Pan-Africanist from Trinidad to try to prove your point, who also used the word Black. So I'm Black and proud. I'm Black. I want Black power. He ascribed to the term Black. I don't get it, y'all. I do get it. I do get it. I do get it. I don't know. I've been neglecting the chat, but I'm just, I get it because again, to those who study, those who really embody the information that our elders and elder ancestor scholars have laid down, we understand the significance of being Black. We understand the significance of being African. We also understand the essentialness of self-identifying. And I'm not saying that as an FBA person, you can't self-identify. I'm just letting you know that ain't 48 million people, and 48 million people never going to do it. It's not going to happen. Now, let me not ever say never. Let me, there's going to have to be some changes. It's going to have to evolve to be more clear. It's going to have to open up the boundaries a bit more, because the very website said it speaks against the majority of our people in their religious practices. So where they do that at? I'm not saying that I ascribe to that religion, but I am saying I'm not foolish enough to think that the majority of people, and that we as a collective are going to identify as FBA, and then you just say all these things that you can't do. And then you also have all this anti-African and anti-Pan-Africans rhetoric. It's very clear that you're anti-Pan-Africanists. I mean, like, I don't know how many times I've been called an African booty scratcher. I mean, what? Like, I've been called an African booty scratcher. They calling people who disagree with them African booty scratcher. I don't know what's going on, family. And you think that we're supposed to, and we will subscribe to this? Boy, we got to do better. We got to do better, family. We got to do better. So let's keep moving. All right, let's see how I can do this. How are we looking on time? We are looking okay. All right, what are we looking at, y'all? All right. Let's see, teach Dr. Winkler. What's the names of did FBA people have before slavery? You know, we're in the age of ninjas just yapping on the internet. It don't need to make sense or be based in reality. Yeah, I mean, and I agree that it absolutely doesn't. You know, a grifter gave you your name. I don't know if they're talking to me, but is there anything, family, in here that I need to go and like pull up that's actually where are the ancient FBA fossils? That's a good one. But anyway, all right, let's do this. Okay. I know I talked kind of off script a bit, but there's some key terms that just if it hasn't been clear already. Ethnicity is a shared peoplehood based on history, culture, institutions, and belonging. I want to be clear. That is not genetically based. I just want to be clear. Listen to it. Shared peoplehood, which is social, based on history, their experiences, culture, the way that they move, you know, in society, the way they engage one another, the way that we pass our traditions down, the way that our values, and African Americans do have values. Black Americans, if that helps you feel better, we have values. Again, I'm going back to this idea that Pan-Africans don't subscribe as Black Americans. What? Dr. Amos Wilson, if he used the word both words, and he was very clear on putting them both in one of the sentences there. So again, then ethnogenesis, this is the term of the day. This is the main reason of this particular broadcast. Ethnogenesis, the historical process through which new ethnic groups or new ethnic group comes into being via rupture, institutions, and shared meaning. Again, none of that is genetic. I'm not saying that there's no genetics involved here. Not that people don't have DNA and that you can't find patterns and similarities through that. But an ethnogenesis, in fact, an ethnogenesis has nothing to do with, you can frame it in a multiplicity of ways. It doesn't even have to be racially based. It could be just culturally based, or a group of people who've come together. And in fact, it's not definitely not genetically based. You won't get a test that says, well, this person is out completely. If they got, this is where where that one drop thing, we show that how pseudoscientific or how unreal it was, or all that, but it's still the way that people the way the society has been stratified. So again, ethnogenesis, the historical process through which a new ethnic group comes into being via rupture, meaning something happened, y'all, like the enslavement of our people, institutions, and shared meaning. And then we, all the Africans that came here, all the African people have come here and our experiences here in America, and with these people that many times they engaged in ways of rape and all that type of thing, and different offspring came about. And then I'm not saying it all was through via rape either, but whatever the experience was, some of it consensual. Some say, how do you consent at different times when you weren't even seen as a full human being? But I'm saying that that is not the only aspect of the story, but that is a real serious aspect of the story. And then we have you have to look at the shared meaning. There's a way that African Americans or Black Americans or FBA people make sense of the world. Now, this FBA category, there's a new meaning that's coming about. But again, at best, they are going to be a sub-ethnogenesis, because it'll never be the 48 million they're talking about unless there's some strong changes made within the ideology. And they have to first admit that they are an ideology, and they have an ideology, because there'll be no reason. Again, there'll be no reason to create a new name, a new label without any political reasons. In fact, ethnogenesis is very politically led. There's an ethnogenesis for political reasons. There's no reason to have an ethnogenesis without any political reasons. It's a political process. It's a cultural process. It's a social process. It's a historical process. It's a defining of something anew. And I am saying that FBA has not delineated enough from what we call African American. Now, if they don't think there's a need to delineate from African American, then perhaps there's no need for it at all. And what am I saying about that? Why am I saying that? I'm saying that there's what they're saying African American covers. It's just not that. African Americans know who African Americans are or Black Americans are. And I'm not saying there's not anyone is confused a bit, but for the most part, and scientifically and through research, we know who we're talking about. So Black racial identity is a set of attitudes regarding oneself, Black people, and other groups. I just want to put that there, because that, again, that's another social construct and identity, and Black people identify as such. Black racial identity is a set of attitudes, right, regarding oneself, other Black people, and other groups. I'll keep moving. I've gone over this before in previous videos. But it is essential to understand that there's subcategories, there's subgroups. Black identity is plural and variable, I put here. Plural, meaning there's a variety or different ways to be Black. Even if you believe there's one way to be Black, I mean, we could debate that. Because that's the reason to be a social identity or in the first place, because, and that's what I'm arguing, that FBA is another version of a Black identity. That's what it is. It's not the umbrella. It's not the African American umbrella that actually includes all of those who come through the transatlantic experience. Their ancestry came through the transatlantic experience here in the United States of America, in this United States of America. I put FBA as a distinct subgroup identity. Distinct subgroup identity. Again, at best, with my calculations, with the rhetoric and the ideology, at best is a subgroup. At best, it would be a sub-ethnogenesis. And it's not even there yet, because it has not made it very clear on what differentiates them from African American. Again, not an umbrella racial category. A specific, what it is. It says not an umbrella racial category. Now this slide, I spoke about this slide a few weeks ago, and someone, oh, look what he said. He changed it up. You see how it's a bit confusing. But so it is not an umbrella category, FBA. It is a specific subgroup with lineage-based claims and political meaning. You can't say FBA doesn't have a political ideology. If not, there's no reason for it. I want to continue to tell you this. There's no reason to create a new label without there being some political rationale. An ideology, what is it? An organized set of beliefs. FBA has that. Values that guide meaning and political action. Whether or not you agree with it or not, they have these beliefs and attitudes and values that guide their political action. You understand? And political behavior, beliefs, attitudes, and actions through which groups organize power, regulate legitimacy, enforce boundaries, and guide collective action. It is a subgroup in the African American community, and it's not even hardly that. It's just, and it's more of a subgroup at the internet level at this point. So I'm even being generous, to be honest with you, by calling it a subgroup. I'm being generous because most people haven't heard of this subgroup yet. But there's other subgroups people haven't heard of. Like the Hebrew, like everybody never heard, not everyone heard of the Hebrew Israelites or the Moors or the who, whatever. A lot of people haven't heard of these groups. Quite like FBA. FBA, many people have not heard of this group, and their trajectory is not really promising if they don't make some great change. They have to become honest that they are a political group. And again, I'm being generous because it is a sham, first of all. But I understand the people who believe in it. They really think it's going to go somewhere. I mean, maybe they'll get that fake leader out the way and maybe they'll do something. Not something that I agree with, but maybe they'll do something. Maybe the political leader is a scam artist or whatever, but maybe the people will take it on and take it up and make something out of it. Whether I agree with that or agree with their politics, that's something different. Again, when we look at this from a social scientific perspective, it's not an in or out thing. People can create these groups. I can go and create a group tomorrow and say and push it and promote it as such, and it will be a group. Although they say they're not a group. Like, what are you then? You're not a group. You're a lineage. Is African American? They'll ask these crazy questions like African Americans. Does African Americans have ideology? I say yes, they have plenty. Does African American? I was about to ask another question, but I forgot what I was about to say. But African American in FBA ain't on the level of African American. It's just not. And it won't be. It is on the level. It's a subcategory. It's a sub-community within the African American population that's causing all types of noise, good or bad, whatever you want to call it. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying what it isn't. It is not an umbrella term. It is not a ethnogenesis because African American has already done that. The word has evolved to mean a certain ethnic group who had an experience here in America, the United States of America. My people. Yes, my people, my mother, my father, grandmother, grandfathers, and great-greats. That's already done. Again, yeah, my wife's from Jamaica. She ain't claiming to be African-American. Although she's naturalized. She's not claiming to be African-American. No, she's not. So African Americans represent one of the clearest cases of ethnogenesis I put here, formed through slavery and racial caste, cultural recomposition, shared institutions and struggle. African Americans' identity exists independent of ideology or subscription. It's African American identity exists independent of a single ideology and subscription. But maybe FBA, once they admit that they do have an ideology, then they'll admit that they have a variety of ideologies. But if they don't have an ideology, there's no need for them to even exist. Again, there's no need to exist unless you have an ideology or some type of political goal. Yeah, the term African American was definitely there was political rationale around it. Yes. African American already underwent ethnogenesis. FBA does not create a new people. It reinterprets and narrows an existing peoplehood. That's what it does. It narrows and says that even those who are African Americans and those who come through the their parents, their grandparents, and their forefathers and mothers who've come through this transatlantic experience, per the website, some of them are being called out as not necessarily being at least good FBAs, traitors, or we don't accept them because of their religion and all that type of thing. Like, what? So you create these strong boundaries. Like, I mean, I'm not saying you just gonna have to do better. Take this as a lesson. I'm just trying to help you do better. I think I've heard it, brother, and he's been getting better in his interpretation, his explanation of FBA. And I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do it, let's do this thing right. If you're gonna do it, let's do it right. I mean, I wouldn't call myself an FBA because it's horribly done wrong. Now, maybe if you make me a believer, if you do some things right and give me real reasons why we need to adapt to this new label, yeah. But what you're doing so far is horrible. You need to do better. So I'm saying is if you want the 48 million Black people here in America to identify as FBA, I'm talking about those whose family members came through chattel slavery here in the United States or what have you. And then we can throw your myths in there as well. The Aboriginal Black people and also the explorers, those you can throw those in there as well. Or hypothesis or whatever you want to call it. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, nonetheless, you got to do better. FBA versus African American. Let's talk ethnogenesis. Again, ethnogenesis is not a genetic process. It's a social process. It's a historical process. It's a cultural process. And I'm not saying that genetics aren't at play, but you can't measure it through genetics. In fact, race, you can choose, again, like I said earlier, I'll be recursive for those who haven't been here and those who've been here. You can choose how you faction and form groups. You can have they have if some of these research articles, they talk about the African American having ethnogenesis moving from the South to the North. It's a political thing. What do we need? How do we need to identify to accomplish what we will? It's that type of thing. What label will best serve us to come together in a way that empowers us? It's more about that type of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think that you've thought these things out completely. I don't think you've thought them out well enough. But in fact, I know that the leadership really doesn't care. But the people who say they don't have a leader, I'm just suggesting you go back to the drawing board and still man this thing. I'm trying to help you out here. And maybe you might get it to some point, someday you might get it to the level that I will say, you know what? I can get with that. But right now, Nah, you ain't dead, B. You ain't dead. Again, African Americans already underwent ethnogenesis. FBA does not create a new people. It reinterprets and narrows an existing peoplehood. FBA does what FBA does. It relabels African Americans, narrows membership by lineage, supposedly, add ideological framing. And that's why I'm saying the ideological framing itself is what narrows the membership. The very thing you say you don't have. Go to the official FBA.com. I mean, it's the most official thing you got so far. You're like, well, I'm going to create me a website because that website does not represent all FBA. Well, this is what you have. This is what you have. I mean, when you put yours up, I mean, and if it's clean and clear and concise and it makes political sense, I'll say, you know what? This person right here, they're making a good effort. But at this point, again, I don't agree with ADOS. Again, I don't agree with ADOS. But again, if I had to choose, if someone had, if they said the what do they call, like in electoral politics, the lease of, what is it called? Somebody help me out. Y'all know what it's called. When you pick the one who the least harmful or what have you. I don't think any of them are least harmful, but I will say is at least ADOS seems like it has some type of academic or ideological or rigor or some group membership, or they at least seem like they thought it out. Although I know they skew things and they weaponize data against us and misinterpret the data intentionally. So again, the conclusion here is FBA is an ideological identity project within African American ethnogenesis. FBA is an ideological identity project within the African American ethnogenesis. What am I saying? I am saying it's a subgroup that falls within the African American population. It's not an umbrella term. It's not even an umbrella ethnogenesis. It's not even a real ethnogenesis unless they hijack what African American has already done. So at best, I'll give them is an effort of creating a subculture that has the goal of bringing on the 48 million that they speak about. But as narrow as they've defined it, and as narrow as the membership, they're going to have to do something with the opening up and being more open to other members of the African American community whose ancestors, again, I want to be clear, came through chattel slavery here in the United States of America. And I keep saying this over and over again because I don't want them to say, well, he's talking about Africans and all. No, I am talking about it is narrow, even when it speaks about us, whose ancestors have come through this African American project. So again, FBA is an ideological identity project within the African American ethnogenesis. So that is what I have here, family, today. I had some articles and all, but I don't think I need them. I did have an article. Let me see here. Let's see here. I had an article that I read the other day that I thought was pretty telling, because I don't think we've done enough to really explain what ethnogenesis is and what it isn't. But there's lots of articles on ethnogenesis, and what I'll say is, lots of times we don't realize how complex social science is, and we think that we can just say just about anything. We think that it's easy. It's not easy work. You have to be able to hold complexity and nuance and all those type of things. But let me see what's going on in the chat. All right. Family. Oh, let me see. Does anybody want to jump on and have a conversation? Proper Perspective, go and like and subscribe to the Proper Perspective family. He's doing great work over there. Do that. Also, family, like this video, subscribe, all those type of things. Let me see. Let's talk a bit in the chat. What y'all got for me before I get up out of here? Let's talk a bit in the chat. I'll go down to the bottom and see if anyone puts anything in the chat. Let's see what the most recent comment says. It says those natives on the reservation should be speaking about this hijacking of their ancestry. Absolutely. Yeah, that I think that deserves let me do that. Let me find. Okay, cool. I found where I need to go. So yeah, I think that the natives, in fact, I heard someone say something very impactful. They said, so like, if you're claiming to be the natives, you've already gotten various forms of reparation. Not saying it's enough, but you're going to have to fight something a little bit differently. Now, someone put, who are the OMAC? Okay. OMACs are generally Native Americans, someone says. Let's see here. Let's see if we got something here. Fecal brain. Okay. I'm trying to. Let me see. Is anybody else saying anything? Anybody who wants to come on? Who wants to come on? Again, you don't know jack shit about DNA. Rah. The True Pilgrim. Let me see what True Pilgrim has been saying. True Pilgrim is saying that Loving was lying about being Native. So are her children and grandchildren. So True Pilgrim, I'm trying to figure, what do you claim to be, True Pilgrim? I've seen you a few times. I can't recall. I think if I'm clear, I'm thinking you've been kind of on the kind of like attack side. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Let's see here. True Pilgrim, I thought you were going to say something. Okay. Yeah, 99% of black people don't look nothing like Miller. Okay, y'all having another conversation. DNA doesn't support your pseudo claims. Okay. Yeah, I know. True Pilgrim say, are you a DNA scientist? Y'all having a serious talk in the chat. None of those that I want to kind of explore at the moment. I wanted to hear whether or not you all have a better idea of what ethnogenesis is and isn't, because there's been, I think, there's been a lack of clarity. And I just wanted to be clear that it is a social, historical, cultural process. Okay, I don't know what y'all talking about, but nonetheless, family. Let me see. Let me see. Anybody who wants to come in and kind of like, I'm talking about respectful people who might have. I'm not debating. I don't want to debate. I just want to chat a bit. people want to chat in a real sense, not in a real sense. I'm not sure if I don't want to do any weird stuff. I don't want to talk about anything that I put the link in the chat, but I don't want any weird stuff. Okay. I don't have too much. I'm not debating. But if we want to talk, we can talk.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
Position about debating about these things. I'm not doing that because it's not necessary. Now, I would like to talk to people who truly I did check the links out, Kevin. I haven't gotten to Kevin, aka Mr. K. I haven't had the chance to quite do a deep dive into him yet. I have so many things that I'm thinking about speaking to. I'm going to actually be talking about these attitudes and what the research speaks about or says or supports as pertains to the attitudes in a multi-directional sense as it pertains to Africans, African Caribbean, and African American people, or AKA those who identify as FBA. I kind of don't like to use the term. I use the word FBA just for respect, but why I am a little reluctant to use FBA is because FBA they're a subgroup. So if I was to use FBA attitudinally, the results will be skewed because they won't make up the majority or capture the general. It won't be a large enough sample. It'll be what is it called? I can't think of the term right now, but definitely wouldn't be a large enough sample ideologically, just for the sake of conversation right now. So I don't think nobody came up. I did put the link in the chat, and I don't see anyone. Yeah, so use the term so-called FBA or call them U.S. delineators. Yeah, because, and the reason why I'm saying I don't want to, I use the word FBA I'm using it for respect, but because it's it's a subgroup, if I was to do research and say, well, the attitudinal variables of FBA people, there was to be a very specific group of people who have certain ideas of Black people outside of the United States or immigrants. Whereas if I was to use the majority of the African American population, the results would be different, because FBAs have an ideology that support their attitudinal dispositions, feelings, and behaviors. So all right, it was a pleasure, family. I appreciate you all stopping through. No one jumped in the chat. No one jumped in. I don't think. Let me look down here again. It looks like I'm the only one in the building. Again, let me just give it one more go. If anybody wants to jump in and have a conversation, a respectful dialogue, especially about this particular topic, ethnogenesis, because to me, this wasn't about attacking any ideas. This was more about, if you're going to say it's a ethnogenesis, let's just be clear on what an ethnogenesis is. In fact, I'm talking about from whether or not you agree with FBA or not, we need to be clear on what it is and what it isn't, and whether or not FBA actually qualifies as an ethnogenesis, which I argue and maintain that it doesn't. Let me see if I can put this. I'm gonna put this in here one more time, y'all. One more again. And there's people who probably specialize in this area. If you want to come on and talk about it, I would appreciate that as well. But I put it in the chat, family. I'm gonna give you a few more minutes to see who wants to jump up or get down, whatever how they said. If you want to come in and chat, come in and chat. So, I mean, my Pan-African is, look, y'all can show up, just show up and support. You can just, if you just want to show your red, black, and green, I put this up. People think I'm debating FBA, the Black manosphere, and intersectionists and other divisive formations. I'm not debating. I'm providing a social diagnosis. This is social therapy, revealing blind spots, guiding a process of collective cognitive restructuring. And I say that to be clear that I'm serious about that. And there'll be other topics because there's a lot of formations in identity politics that we think serve to bring us together. And in all actuality, they don't. American Dream, I see you on. Can you turn your camera on, please? All right, so you know what? Let me do this. I'm gonna add you to the stage, and I'm gonna take you off like that. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You're broken up. You're breaking up a bit, but I can hear you. Peace, brother. I think it's a brother. American Dream.
Let me see if I can find another location. Yes, sir. Are you hearing me any better?
I can hear you. It's not lagging anymore.
Okay. So thanks for the presentation. That was a great presentation, I think. I like how you spelled out ethnogenesis as a social construct. I think that's pretty on point. The only question I have is
American Dream, you're breaking up there. You're breaking up.
Oh man, a lie. Hang on. Let me try some. Any better?
We can try it.
Am I still breaking up or?
You sound better right now.
Am I still breaking up or?
You sound better right now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
So let me just ask my question real quick. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So my question is, they claim that they have a lineage, and I think that's what makes them think that it's more than just a social construct, that it's genetic, because they refer to it as a lineage. So I was just hoping, I was just wondering if you could speak to their lineage and why you believe that, their lineage is also a part of that social construct.
Okay, so make sure I'm following you. They claim they have a lineage, and they also think that they. Could you say it one more time for me?
Yeah, when they say it's a lineage, they kind of make people think that they have a genetic connection, that it's genetic, because our understanding of lineage is that it's it's based on DNA and sharing DNA. And so when they call themselves a lineage, I think I'm wondering, I think that's what allows them to make it think it's not just a social construct, or that's the main thing that's going to prevent them from understanding it as an ethnogenesis. So I'm hoping you can speak to why their idea of a lineage is also a part of the social construct.
Well, just to be honest, I'm not sure if they, as a whole, in general, when I say as a whole, I'm saying generally, I don't know what the consensus are when it comes to if they think this is something genetic. I've just have been hearing people on all sides of the conversation speak to it at times in a genetic sense, and it's not a genetic process. Not saying that people don't have genetics or DNA and that there's not patterns that we can find. I think,
but if they
part of the
but if
issue,
they say you have to, not to cut you, but if they say they have to trace their lineage back to slavery, then there would have to be something genetic about it.
Well, they kind of, if you listen to them a lot of times, many of them would say that they don't trust genetics. There are some who sometimes they'll say they don't trust genetics, but then they'll say it's genetic. So they conflate a lot of things. And I'm saying that even those who agree with it or don't agree with it, there's a lot of conflation going on. So what I do hear a lot of them say, though, is they look at it from more of a genealogical standpoint. And they look at it genealogically because they then somehow they go back to what their grandmother said about them being Aboriginal and always here and all that type of thing. But then I also
are you separating genealogy from genetics?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain the difference?
So genealogically, they're talking about more of their ancestral tree, for lack of a better way of explaining it. The way that they do the research through the documents and all those type of thing, right? But then genetically, that is what you do when you have a test, a test like a swab or saliva or blood or things like that.
Yeah. It looks like you froze up. Did you freeze up?
Did I?
Oh, okay, mate. No, because I guess in my head I see the genealogy part of it is just based on what they know. They know their grandparents, their great grandparents. Like they don't need a test to show that. But
right.
Regardless of that, it's still a genetic connection. It's still based on DNA. Even if, when we do our family tree, we want it to be, and our expectation is that it is a genetic connection. It's not just something that we're making up. So, I'm still kind of, not sure how genealogy and is being separated from having that genetic composition.
Yeah, so quickly, let me just read this. Genetic refers to your DNA, the biological code inside your cells. It answers what populations are in your DNA, what percentage of quote unquote West African, European, Native American you have. This is what 22 like tests like 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, etc. do, right? Genealogical refers to your family lineage. You hear the word lineage, right?
Right.
Who your ancestors were as a people in history, who were your grandparents, what communities did your ancestors belong to, what surnames, records, enslaved persons, villages, clans, families connect you to the past. It is a historical and social process.
I'm sure, but I don't think we can take out the genetic part of it, though. I think it's still kind of an unspoken, even if genealogy is just a family tree, that's a social thing, it's still kind of like an unspoken rule that, you know, DNA connection is part of it, because you can't really create a family tree and not expect that you have their you have their genes.
Yeah.
But you know, I
you
guess
you can though. You can, because I mean, just we have to parse it out, right? I'd rather repeat me, because, like, for example, I have family members who I found out wasn't my family members. On the family tree, they show up, but when they taken the DNA test, they realize something funny happened. So it's not. I get what you're saying, but they're two different processes, and most of the time they're speaking about genealogy. So just for clarity, I agree with you that we should not forgo the genetic components, but they don't really. They will actually downplay genetics and upplay genealogy.
Sure, but you know, if I was in that position where I had placed myself on a certain family tree and then did a test and found out that my genes didn't belong there, then I would remove myself from that family tree, and I would try and figure out what is a better family tree that best represents my genes. But I can't understand how genealogy would be separate from genetics. And you know, just to be clear, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just trying to, like, we have to go with your question though, like, to answer your question. They don't really,
because I just wanted to be a little bit more clear on.
They don't give a lot of
question is.
They don't really give a lot of stake in genetics. That's the answer. They are more genealogical.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out what distinction they're making. Like, how is it genealogical without being genetic? And I'm wondering, is that a part? Because in my head, it would have to be. It's a part of their scam, if you will.
Absolutely, that's right. I mean, that's it. That's it. I mean,
right, and that's I guess that's the question I'm asking. Is that from your view? Like, would you see that as part of why it's just a social construct? It's just something that they're making up. Like, this idea of their lineage is really something that they're making up, because you know, their lineage can go back to the Caribbean. Their real genetic lineage. You know, they can have.
Some of it is a scam. Some people really believe that science isn't real because of our trauma here in America. So they believe that it's best to hear it from their grandmother. Although grandma can be wrong, they will downplay anything. That's called cognitive dissonance. When you have information that says something different than what you believe, sometimes people they struggle with it, and they say, well, look, just imagine, let's talk about the example I gave. If someone in your family took a genetic test, and their whole life they grew up thinking they was this thing, and then when they took the test and they found out that Papa might not be Papa, or Mama Mama gonna be Mama, or maybe not all the time, but then what they'll do is go through a state of denial, and in that denial, they might say this test doesn't work. It's kind of like people who get blood pressure diagnosis, like or some type of illness. They go through denial phase. And some people get stuck in that state of denial. So they'll say the DNA is not real. It's the white man's science. It's they'll say things like that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think they'll say things like that, but then in the same breath claim that they're a lineage, and they're basing it on genetics and on, you know, because they can't. I just don't understand how they can refer to themselves as a lineage, you know, but it's not based on genetics. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So, American Dream, I hear you, but I think what you're trying to do is make sense out of something that's not sensical. And what I mean is, it's not you. You're trying to think through, like, you're trying to think with your mind and how they would, like, you're using what you know. You have to understand that they have a different way of seeing things. It's false, but that's how they see it. So it doesn't have to make sense, because, again, it's a part of the mythology. And people believe all types of things as false. And some people believe that, some people, again, that's why I put up earlier, that some people are the game creators while other people are advocates and players and pawns. A lot of our people are pawns and players and advocates for something they don't really know or understand. They believe the game or the system that was created called FBA and its ideology, although it doesn't really make sense. And lots of times that has to do with our trauma. Our trauma will have us not trusting certain levels of science. It happens all the time. I'm certain most of us don't trust science, or we'll trust it to the degree that it serves us. And then there's times where we negate science many times, and then we find out that we should have went with it because of our fears, harm, traumas, the Tuskegee experiments, and all the different things that happen to us. So our people are very skeptical and hurt. So you may be able to look at things through a scientific lens, but it's not unheard of for our people to be very skeptical of science. So that's why they will trust genealogy over genetics. Although, as you say, why not do both?
Sure, and I do think you hit the nail on the head when you said I'm trying to get into their head and see exactly what their thought process is, how they're connecting what they're connecting, and it really doesn't make normal sense. It really doesn't make natural sense for them to call themselves a lineage, because they're trying to give the impression as if they have this connection, this genetic connection, that all of them are one people based on this genetic connection, because a lot of them will tout their native Indian DNA and their even their white DNA. And somehow I think within that ethnogenesis, they are trying to make it genetic, and they're trying to make it seem as if they have this, when Native Americans and Aboriginal blacks and white people, when their genes mix, they create this new gene that's referred to as FBA. But I do think that, but I agree with you. I think it's nonsense. But I think that's how they kind of rationalize it in their head. And I guess I'm trying to figure out like, how would you try and make that and make them see where the flaws in their thinking may be?
I think more of what we're doing here today, I call this the social cognitive restructuring process, and people have already hit me up and told me I've helped allow them to see things in a more realistic sense. I think that's part of the process. And I think that's part of the process because many times we just say, you know what, I'm not really going to waste my time on talking about these discussions. These people are foolish. But I think that lots of times when we're not, there has to be some kind of counterbalance to the madnesses out here. In fact, sick stuff actually typically gets more playtime because it's just what happens. But there still has to be an attempt from my standpoint for those who are looking, on those who are ready to wake up.
Yeah, indeed. And just to close off, I would say, Jamaicans, for example, like we see ourselves as one people, but it's based on the fact that we're one nationality. We see ourselves as one nation. It's not that we don't necessarily think we all have the same lineage. You know what I'm saying? Like the only way we think of that is that we share the same African ancestry, like our ancestry goes back to Africa, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same exact lineage. And I think, that's kind of what they want to say, but they also are wrapping it up into this genetic thing that they feel they all share.
Well, I think we can deal with that a bit. I think that there's some nuance in what you said. So you're Jamaican?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then you are interesting. Your name is American Dream on here. So and
yeah, absolutely. Sure. I think the American Dream, really relates to immigrants and immigrants' dream of being in America and living and having that American experience, and you know what I mean, and having those freedoms and liberties that are here in America that don't exist in our native country. And in my view, that's really what the American dream is about. There've been immigrants coming to this country since its founding. You know what I'm saying? That the Statue of Liberty symbolizes immigrants coming here, and I think that's really
American dream.
Fundamentally what one of the main.
So I don't agree. I don't believe in the American dream, but I do get what you're saying.
That's just what it means to me.
Okay, yeah. I don't agree with the American dream, but I do get why people do believe in it, especially immigrants and all that type of thing. And there's people here who believe in it, but
you don't believe that America offers you freedoms?
I think it's complex and is a different conversation, but I think that America is definitely not what people believe, including Jamaican people who come here and they find out that America is not all that they thought it was. And it's nowhere near what they thought it was. Is in fact, there are people back in Jamaica who believe these myths of America, and they're here trying to work hard and struggle to send home barrels and all this type of thing. And when you go there, they think you're rich. I mean, you might be rich, but I'm just saying there's a mythology around this American dream, and it's not real. I mean,
where would you rather be?
It's not about where I would rather be. We're talking about the American dream, whether or not it's real or not.
Well, I think the fact that there's nowhere else you'd rather be kind of speaks to the fact that there is an American dream.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. And that doesn't.
So where would you rather be?
Where would I rather be? I have goals and aspirations, but that's not the stake of this conversation. But I thank you for asking your questions. Do you have anything else on the topic though?
No, that's about it. I do appreciate you letting me in. And again, just I think your presentation on ethnogenesis being a social construct was really interesting and really drew up a lot of questions for me. So I just want to say thanks for that, and appreciated the show.
Well, thanks for popping by. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Michelle. Michelle?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Greetings. You have a lot of noise in the background, but let's try it.
Okay. Got my headset on, so I'm not quite sure what's happening here. I'll be brief. First, let me just say thank you to your voice of reason that you've lent to the discussion. I have a concern about the way the issue is even being framed and discussed. I don't think it's healthy or constructive, a way to get us to a real problem that deserves a real discussion, real answers, and a real decision about a way forward and who we're going to be and what we're going to do. I noticed a difference in your discussion with Unc the other night. And my takeaway was I could tell that you are a trained scholar, and Unc is somebody who just reads up on stuff. And there's a difference in the two. You are coming at this from the standpoint of actually trying to get to a truth. Real scholarship has to do with solving problems, finding answers, answering questions that are going to impact our material existence. But if you're somebody who just reads up on stuff and you like to argue and debate and do everything to go out of your way to make the other side wrong, you come away with a different way of discussing things, addressing things, talking about things. And I don't think it's always so helpful. And so I would just encourage people like maybe Ankh and even Dr. Ma'at to not go, and this can go to both sides, but especially them, just because I'm on this channel, not go out of the way to make the other side wrong. For example, they say that no African people were here at all. And you made the point of clarification in the discussion with Ankh that Van Sertima talks about a presence. And there is evidence that there was a presence. But Ankh and Dr. Mott, they would say, no, the Olmecs, other Asiatic people had those kinds of features. Yeah, but some of the Olmec heads have braids too.
I think though, what happened? It happened a little differently. At least the other day when Ankh was on, I do see the concern on all sides, right? I think Ankh was really nuanced the other day when we spoke about that on this particular platform, because what he did say was that as of now we don't have evidence to support that. Not saying that we won't see anything in the future,
but we do actually. We do have evidence that the Olmecs were, at best, they were maybe Afro-Asiatic Polynesian people. Maybe they look like Tua Tagovailoa. Look at the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. He looks black, but he's like Samoan or something like that. From the South Pacific, he doesn't identify as black, but he looks like he could be black.
But I think what you're saying now is what. Now, Ankh says things in the way that he says them, mm-hmm. and I think that he would probably agree with you that he's not a trained scholar, but I think that he actually is saying more the same thing you just said. I do understand how sometimes some people can have us cringe. Now, I know Dr. Mott is a bit nuanced, but I do know that Ankh, on the other, when I say nuanced, I think that she can see multiple sides as well. Now, what I did say on that show the other day is that I don't think that Van Sertima said that we were the civilizations here, that he just said that there was some engagement and interaction and so forth and so on. Now,
right.
But I do think that, again, that could be a hypothesis. I do agree with not shutting it down completely, but I do also think that it does warrant more evidence. But I also think that what Ankh said, I'm coming back to what I said earlier, I do think that he would agree with what you just said, that he does not, like the brother, whoever it is that you said is a football player, but he looks black, but he doesn't identify as black. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that would actually support what Ankh's argument is. He doesn't always say it in a way that lands in a way.
Because he's not a trained, evolved thinker.
but if you listen to him, I think he would be saying the same thing. Like this guy, I don't know what you say, Polynesian or something like that. Mm-hmm. He would say that these are different people, and we just can't go. His argument would be, we just can't go around just making everybody black just because they look a certain way. And I think that that's a fair argument because, again, black is a social construct. It doesn't mean it's not that it can't describe a people. But I also do think it's pretty unfair to go around and say everybody is this or that because they look like this. But I do understand what people are saying, though. I mean, even Baba, I do get it. Baba, what is it? Dang, I can't think of his name right now. But he used to go around and dang, I got his book over right here somewhere. What is his name? He used to go everywhere to Australia, and somebody in the chat, please.
Renuka Rashidi?
Yeah, Renuka Rashidi. Thank you. And honestly, I used to challenge Baba Renuka Rashidi back in the day when I used to say, so who's not black? Or who's black? And who decides who's black? And I used to have that same argument, right? And you may not notice. I don't know. Are you in Baltimore?
No, I'm in Chicago.
You're in Chicago. Okay, cool. Love to the Chicago fam. So Renuka Rashidi came here to Baltimore one time. I think a group to my brothers and sisters PLM brought him here. This was during the time the Hidden Colors had just become really hot. And he came here, and I was arguing back then that, like, you can't just make people black who you think are black and not black because you don't agree with them politically. Like, it's you can't just say people aren't genetically black. It's very complex. But what I did was I challenged some of the people in my organization, asked them, like, what makes a person black? So one of the guys in my organization named Brother Sankofa went to Runoko Rashidi at the lecture. He asked him, he said, so what is black? Because I was debating with the people in my own organization saying, you just can't say everybody's black. And then Runoko Rashidi said, that's easy. I can answer that. Then he thought a little longer. Then he said, let me come back and do a lecture on it. And he came back and did a lecture on it. But guess what?
What?
He still couldn't define what black was. And he still couldn't. Because in order to define what black was, he would have to somehow challenge maybe even some of the people he called black. I'm not saying these people don't have a certain level of melanin, then they're not Afrocoid, because we have to understand that even the very construct of blackness and how it was created under certain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that we can't reclaim it like many of us have. But that doesn't mean that those people have to identify as black either. They don't even know anything about this American construct if they're in like the South Pacific Islands. But there are people there who do, and maybe it will identify with it. What I'm saying is it's not a genetic thing, and it's not it's not as simple as people try to make it. That's all I can try to say. But I do get what people mean by it. I do want to say that. I do get, like, that person looks like my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
That person looked like homeboy from around there. You know, so I do get it. And I do understand why we would like to do that. Because white people do it. White people make people white some days, and sometimes some days they're not. Mm-hmm. So I think politically, I would like a lot of people to become black. And what I mean by black in a political sense means that they're fighting for us. And even from a Pan-African standpoint, black. If the South Pacific Asian people want to identify as black, and some do, I believe, they can, because we need more people in our fight. White people usurp, and co-opt everybody. They have co-opted the Mexicans before. They have co-opted, it's a lot of social categories that just don't make sense because it's social construction. Like, what is a Latino or a Latina? Like, we have to ask real questions. None of these things are really, you have to define what you mean when you say black. Now, if you can define it, and it's a little complex, but yeah, I appreciate the call. Anything else?
Just real quick, I don't know if there is nuance, there is complexity. The social construct of race is not exact and full of holes. Mm-hmm. and faults and flaws, but in terms of who's black and who's not, it seems like it's easy sometimes, and then when it comes to being something good, I'm not FBA or any of that, by the way, and this leads to my last question I was going to ask about, because well, so just quickly about the who's black and who's not. It's not that hard. It's not. I'm not saying it's black and white. I'm not saying it's cut and dry, but I'm just saying it's not that hard. We can talk about who's black phenotypically. That's one thing. Who's black biologically, genetically. That's something else. And then socially, in terms of law and society and how you are perceived.
The more you talk, the more complex you make it sound. Like you said, it's not that hard. Then you just made it complex. Go keep talking though.
Okay. Yeah, no, because like each of those things that I'm talking about, those are things that I'm saying can make it kind of crystallize it and bring it into sharper focus a little bit more about who's black.
I think all that exists already, though.
Pardon?
I don't think I know it exists. Because look, I'll give you an idea. It's not only that we're being challenged by the very people in the South Pacific Islands, they're saying they're not black, or Somali people are saying they're not black, right? And I understand why they would say they're not. That's not their reality in a sense. And some will, because they politically understand what black, they have a political affiliation with the idea of being black. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that I'm not only talking about them, I'm talking about our own very family members who didn't want to identify, and still don't. Many of them don't want to identify as black in America. I'm not black.
I'm mixed. We Indian, so yeah, you know that one.
Not even Indian. I'm just Negro or nigga or I'm definitely not African American. Or like what I'm saying is, politically, I want everybody to identify as black. I'm talking about black people who want to fight for us. Politically, I want us to identify as African people, African descendant people who want to fight for us. But at the same time, I understand why some people don't. And I understand why people are lost. And I understand why some people don't see through those lenses. Because black, in the sense that I would gravitate towards the word black, has nothing to do with DNA. It has everything to do with my political position.
DNA kind of helps to back that up, though. And then DNA might assist you in having a certain political.
But you can have DNA, but don't have any black ideology. You're not good. You can. What I'm saying is,
like Candace Owens.
I do
all of them. Mm-hmm.
I do understand DNA does have a part. I won't negate it all the way, but it's essential to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But DNA will not. Like, I can be around people who genetically have similar traits that I have, and they can be politically white.
Mm-hmm. Candace Owens.
Yeah.
People like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's part of the problem. And that's why African people, we find ourselves subjugated. And other people of color have bought into this global notion of anti-blackness. And that's just through the vivid root, I could go on. But anyway, so I wanted to ask you about.
I'm not sure if I agree that that's why we're subjugated, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I think.
I think.
What were you going to say?
I think it's a little bit more than that why we're subjugated, but I do understand that part of the subjugation. The racialization of our phenotypical features in the first place were utilized to say that we were by virtue of, and biblically and all these different things by Papa Bowles to be an underclass. So I mean it's a lot going on there, but. And then I'll see why some people don't want to be black. Black was a dirty word one time. It was like all types of things that happened that we still have to heal from.
Mm-hmm. And two quick questions, because I could go on. Okay, so two quick questions. So as a psychologist, understanding why certain people don't want to identify with black, and you're exactly right. I'm thinking about the experiment where they put the dolls on the table and they ask black children, which one is dirty or which one could, and typically the black children would say that the darker ones, they would associate them with these negative traits. So what kinds of psychological, frameworks can we develop to reverse that on a mass scale? Because I think that's going to help counter our global subjugation. African people are subjugated wherever we are on the planet. And then two, how can we bring some maturity and a general good intention about wanting to achieve an empowered outcome to move us forward to the Pan-African versus FBA debate, because there are flaws and weak points, strengths and weaknesses for both positions. I think both sides attempt to make the other side wrong and don't want to admit that some things are true from both positions. So how can we have that discussion where they can acknowledge, for example, Pan-Africanists can say, you know what, okay, maybe Pan-Africanists do try to separate Black people in America from our American side. And I've had that personal experience with Pan-Africanists where I might go to say somebody was Black and they'll say, no, they're only African. And we can get into a whole discussion where I don't think we can always be defined just as African. I think there are proximate and ultimate identities. So I think sometimes we have to use a proximate identity to the situation that we're in. And so sometimes it's best to say Black or Black American, and we can't just always say African.
I mean, you asked a bit, you might have to remind me of some of these things, but I don't know too many Pan-Africanists that literally say that we're not black, honestly. Now, I just don't, that's not the norm. That's not the norm.
Not American. Or even if you go to say that we're black, they'll say, no, we're African. I've had that happen many times.
I'm going to say that you may find that someone may say that, but I'm going to say generally that is not what black people in Pan-African, there's not a general consensus on Pan-Africanists that say that we're not black. That I would say that you might find someone who say that, but that is not the general consensus.
Well, I would say I would ask for respect of my experience. I'm not making this up out of my head.
I did respect your experience. I said you might find that, but I said it's not the general consensus.
Again, I will push back on that even.
Well, where would you find that at? You have to show me the data that supports that, because that is not the consensus. Like, what Pan-Africanist leader have you heard say that we're not black?
Or when you go to describe us, if you say black people, they say, no, say there's even an example here on YouTube.
I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. I think what you're saying is, now, I think there might be some conflation going on here. And I do respect your experience, but we all have experiences. And again, our experiences can be anecdotal, but it doesn't mean that's what's happening in general. But then two, I do get what you're saying as far as you might hear a black person, African-American, Pan-Africanist say, or African-centered person say, I'm not African-American. They might say, I'm just African.
Right.
African, period. Now, that is what you typically hear.
Okay.
The other thing doesn't exist, but it's just not what you hear in general.
Okay. So even if we go with that, I'm glad that you acknowledge that. But they'll say, no, I'm not African-American, I'm just African. You could even look at the Encobra website right now today, where you see where Cam, I forget his last name, he doesn't say African-American, he says African people in America.
Right.
And goes out of his way to never say African-American.
He doesn't have to, though. And he's still making a distinction, though.
Is he?
Yeah, because he says African in America. That is his way of making a distinction between him being here in America and him being African. In other words, he just don't like the way, it's just like people want to be called different things, and from their experience, like you said, like I would like you to express to respect my experience. That from his optic and his lived experience, he would rather be called an African in America versus African American. And I understand. Most people who say it understand they're the same thing. People just have a preference on how they want to be identified.
But then, and I'm not with the FBA.
You'll never stop it. You'll never stop it. You just have to kind of understand what people mean.
So how can we get to, but what about when you are at the point where you can't even have a conversation with them because they're stopping you and correcting you and belittling you and making you wrong?
No, it happens. Now, it does. I've been, and that happens in communities where people want to, that you're not going to go to a community where that doesn't happen.
I have been in various communities.
You're not going to go to a community where people think they don't have the know-it-all and have all the ideological and philosophical correct ways of doing a thing. But there's many other people who don't operate from that vein. I do get what you're saying, because when they come, it's very scathing, and anything that's scathing feels a lot more pronounced. We don't remember when people don't do things that hurt us. We do remember many times that we do remember more than anything, those things that have hurt us. And I do agree and I understand the experience. I've had the experience as well. Mm-hmm. And this also takes some work from us, because I think that, and I'm going to say, I argue that we we understand how people are hurt, and some people that will use anything to. It's kind of like when you go to the state building, and people got a little position, and they utilize their power in a way that says that I want to use this power because I don't feel respected any other kind of way. And I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that we have to also understand how people are hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, all day, every day, twice on Sunday, very much so. And the questions I'm asking are about how can we get to a healing,
That's
and we
part of
can't.
it. That's part of it, and I appreciate. I'm appreciate having this process with you and allow me to dialogue and even cut in and do all this because
Yeah,
this is part of the process. What I'm
exactly.
saying exactly what I'm saying is that we do have to open our eyes up to understand that that hurt people will try to hurt you, and our people have been hurt. So no matter where they find themselves, you will find these type of individuals. And you go to the church and they call themselves straight up African American, down south Baptist, Southern Baptist. You will have them out bobbling you, and you'll go to the mosque and let's say they're all black, and they're gonna tell you that you don't understand the mechanical sense of this and that. You don't understand the Quran, and like it's just gonna happen because people who feel like they've been people have been oppressed. Let me say that people have been oppressed, and who feel like people have been oppressed. Let me just keep it there. People who have been oppressed want to feel essential and important. They want to feel respected. Mm-hmm. So they will sometimes, when they get information and when they don't feel respect in other areas, if this is the strength of theirs, they might misutilize it. They might not be the softest, but I think it's essential that we understand. I'm not saying let people walk over you. I'm saying, but understand people. Understand where that might be coming from. You can correct them even. Like, brother, I love you, and I get what you're saying, but that didn't feel good.
Yeah, and that's people like Unc. I've been around the conscious community. I've been around all kind of different ideologies and things like that. And so when I go around somewhere and they don't do that kind of thing, I remember it. So I don't do that kind of thing, for example. I'm more pragmatic than ideological anyway. So I'm not, I was just arguing with somebody on Facebook. I said, we need to take a scalpel and not an axe to capitalism. But if you talk to somebody like Jared Ball, he's a staunch socialist, Marxist. So he's going to take an axe to capitalism. It's all bad. Black capitalism is all bad. It's all terrible. But Dr. Ball, you can have a reasonable conversation with him. He's not going to curse you out. He's not going to insult you. He's going to be an ardent socialist. He's going to, not see anything good in capitalism, but he's not going to insult you like Tariq.
I understand why Dr. Ball needs to be the way he is. I understand exactly why.
Is it being mixed and half Jewish?
No. It has nothing to do with those social constructs. What it has to do with is not enough of us actually speak to the reality that this capitalistic or whatever other system that we find ourselves in is going to serve as a means to liberating us. Now, and I think he's very clear when he looks at it from the scalpel, but
he takes an axe.
But no, he doesn't. But sometimes he does. It feels like it. At least it feels like it, because sometimes we don't want to hear people telling us what the reality is. And when you tell people the reality, doesn't matter how you say it, it touches us and hurts us in many ways. So let me give you an example. Dr. Ball often says, like, his one of his main goals is to let people know that capitalism is not going to save us. Another goal is that the Panther said, and I appreciate this point that he makes. See, sometimes what happens is we overlook the nuance, because the thing that was said at the end hurt so bad we forgot about all the other stuff. And he often uses this analogy of the Panther saying they set up survival programs. And he often says that, we need survival programs. And maybe we even need black businesses. But we should not get confused to thinking these things are liberatory or that they are the liberation. And I understand why he does that, because many of us will act like these black businesses are liberation. They're not. And we act like getting a good job is proof of liberation. Like literally people would do these things, or opening up a business or getting a certain level of degree. No, all of these things are in service of These things are in service of the system, but he's not going to say you don't need to operate and use these as a means of survival. He often makes that really clear. And so when I'm having a conversation, it has helped me frame it in a way like, okay, what conversation are we having here? Are we having what you call the big hammer conversation? Or are we having the survival conversation? We need to have both. But to me, I utilize that very clearly. Like in what you'll find in systems theory, you'll find something called first order change, and you'll find something called second order change. And first order change is when you operate within the rules and you don't, and the rules are the same, or you try to rearrange some things, but you don't really disrupt it. In systems theory, we realize that anything you don't disrupt will just continue the process, even if you just make some general changes, because what the system does is try to find equilibrium. And so everything we do within the system itself will only go towards maintaining or finding the equilibrium back in whatever type of system that we're in, whether that be our family system or even our own body. So from our own body, our own inner person, to our partner, to our family, community, society, if we don't disrupt the thing, whatever it is, as a psychotherapist, I understand that you have to really disrupt the thing that's keeping us where we are. But I do understand in the meantime, in between time, you have to survive. And I think that's the nuance that he speaks to. But I do get it. Sometimes he gets a little frustrated and goes with the hammer.
Yeah. He's an ideologue. I'm gonna call him that. I don't even think he would disagree. A staunch socialist Marxist.
I don't know if he's an ideologue. I think he has nuance. But even Unc, right? I just think that, like, one thing I'll say I like about Unc, and again, I think we have to understand each other. It's not one way, and we're not all going to be, we're not going to all have the same skills. And everybody don't go to school, you know. And I'm a therapist, so I can say things and deal with things and hold all types of what's it called, contradiction and all of that, because I understand that this is what is needed to deal with our people from a true state of healing. But everybody doesn't have. Look, sometimes you do need somebody coming and smack. I'm not saying literally, but sometimes that too. If we at war, so like you really need to smack somebody. But I'm saying metaphorically, that sometimes people do need shock, and some people wake up through that shock, and some people, my approach won't work for them either. But for maybe someone like you who, and I'm not even saying my approach works for you, but what I am saying is that there's some people who gravitate towards that approach. And really get to see the nuance. So I mean, I think it all works together, but I do get it. I think we do have to be intentional, though. I do get it.
Yeah, and this is why I like you, because I think you bring a voice of reason to the discussion. The fact that you're even over here with us, and you're not, say, with Mark Lamont Hill. I haven't seen you on Mark Lamont Hill or some of the other more mainstream Black PhDs. I haven't seen you with them. You're down here with us. No, I'm actually not bugging Brent James, but God bless you. So
I'm not down. I'm hoping Lamont Hill is down here with us too.
No, he ain't coming. Roland ain't coming. And see, that's my thing is they will go to any length to make the other side wrong. Now, Mark Lamont Hill is a little bit better than Roland. Mark Lamont Hill, he'll talk to anybody. He'll go anywhere. He doesn't seek the smoke, but he won't avoid it. I mean, it's like he won't run from it. I'll say it that way. But he doesn't look for smoke, but he won't run from it. Now, Roland Martin, you know, to get him and say Tariq Nasheed or anybody who disagrees with him, I don't know, because the minute you go to make any challenge to the Democrats, ooh, boy, Roland, we get to hollering and yelling, talking loud, making you wrong, even though the point is correct. So that's what I mean. So yeah, I wanted to ask, like, how do we get, we gotta find, we can't keep letting this dissension be so destructive and get in the way of us doing the kind of unified work we need to do. And it's not going to be everybody. It's never been all everybody. I tell people, you had the Panthers, you had Garvey, you had King, hey, Philip Randolph, they weren't all getting along, but everybody was moving our people forward in their own way. And but today, especially in terms of reparations, at some point, doctor, we're going to have to get in a room and agree.
What did you say it again? I mean, at some point we're going to have to get in a room and agree.
And agree, especially in terms of the reparations conversation. For example, you can't have 11 people, which is what you have now, going to the Office of Budget and Management, who does a lot of the things for the census and data gathering, economic data gathering for the United States government, and saying, we want to be called ADOS. No, we want to be called Freedmen. No, we want to be called Salon, whatever that one is. So you have African people going to the American government saying, hey, we want to be called all these different things. So at some point, we're going to have to be able, what's the American government going to do? And I think at this point, it's probably Big Daddy government is the only one who could get us in the room at the same time. But
again, if you look at what my argument is that there's no need for a new name. Like, I think it's first and foremost, I don't really trust the creators of the game. I'm talking about this new game called FBA. And I suggest if you're going to fall for any of them, fall for ADOS, because they just seem a little bit more put together. But again, I don't even want you to fall for that. But I would respect you more. I would say you're more ready, at least. You're closer to reality. FBA is not really something that is realistic. I mean, I get it. Like, if it was on a strong foundation, I get it. If it was only a lineage, like they say and they argue, but I would show you that it's not, and it's not, and you're not hearing like if you really hear where the arguments are coming from mostly and where they're deriving from, it's not coming from the Pan-African side. If we really look at it, and for the most part, even people like you. A lot of people I hear, even think about it. The FBA itself was there. Most of the people who were utilized in a way to make it popular were Pan-Africanists, until some of them started to say, hold up, what's going on here? Why are they saying all these other things like this though? Why are they so vitriolic? So we have to really we have to really say, like, why is it so vitriolic? And we have to deal with that. I don't think you will have as many problems with Pan-Africanist people will not have as many problems with FBA if it wasn't putting out misinformation in all types of forms of mythology that serve in the aid of causing the division. Did you say you're not FBA? Did you say
no? I'm African American. I mean, I have lineage going back to South Carolina, the original 13 colonies, but I'm not of that mindset or ideology.
I got what you're saying now. So they will call you an FBA, but you don't identify as FBA. Thank you for that. But again, I do think that what you're saying, I don't really think there's enough evidence that what FBA is saying is needed. Honestly, you could share something with me.
Well, for purposes of reparations, it has to be lineage based. So who would Supreme Court says that's the Supreme Court. That's the California Council on Reparations, who's done probably the most comprehensive study.
If that's the case, though, the case, right? And I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah, see, it can't go to everybody black like what Cam is saying and in Cobra.
But again, there's plenty of people from who are Pan-African say, you know what, that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense to people who identify as Pan-African is the fact that you have to now spend daily hours of showing people or highlighting Somalians' heads and enlarging them, and calling people dusty, crusty Africans, including myself. I'm a dusty, crusty African. I'm Teddy Rubskin. I mean, I'm the Hotep Rubskin. I'm the light skin Roland Martin. I didn't even know I was like light skin, but I'm the light skin Roland Martin. I guess lighter. And then who else am I? I'm the Hotep Drewski.
Now that one, that was a good one, Doc. That was a good one. I gotta give.
Which one was good?
The Hotep Drewski one.
Why is that one so good? You tell me more about that, because you laughed on that one. When they say they when people laugh, they say typically they might think there's some truth there. What's going on now?
Well, actually, there might be a little bit of truth there. There might be some resemblance, and then Drewski's a comedian. So
okay, so I'm funny. Is that what? Yeah. So I think he's from Columbia, Maryland. That's probably about the closest we'll get. Yeah. But yeah, you know, I'm just saying, like, the delusion is FBA. It's not, and I'm not saying, I'm saying like I am a person that can even empathize and understand why people would choose FBA. But we have to understand it comes from a very mythological weaponization of our hurt and pain within the Black community.
The exaggerated part of it, the silly part of it, the part that Tariq has taken it to does.
Someone asked if you're someone on Lumumba Speaks or something like that. Is that you?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. I don't know. This thing asked me to sign in with my Gmail account, so my name is there, and I'm like, okay, I'm pro woman in the chat and on YouTube, but yeah, this thing asked me to sign in with my name, my Gmail, which is my name. So my name is there, Michelle Joyner. That's me. Yep, that's me.
You have a show or something?
No, I've just been on YouTube periodically, and I was on his show. In fact, he was the one who corrected me. I went to say Black people, and he said, no, you got to say African people. So he's one of the ones who I would say, and this is what I've been asking Pan-Africans to just maybe take a look and stop and say, well, some of the things that they're saying about Pan-African, is it true? And actually, Lumumba, he wrote his master's thesis on Pan-Africanism as a faltering system. He even says it's on life support. And he just got his PhD in Black Studies.
So what did Lumumba say?
Lumumba, he said, well, in terms of being an example of Pan-Africanists who can sometimes be arrogant and elitist, and you can't have conversations with them without them stopping you.
I mean, without labeling him the things, what did he say?
Yeah, I was just trying to explain, what was that on? He had done a part, the Nation of Islam. He was talking about the Nation of Islam, and I was calling in to point out some concrete examples of excellent work that Brothers in the Nation have done. And then I went to say something about so Black people here in America or something. And he said, no, you got to say African. And I think he even titled the show something, did the Nation of Islam, do they not want to be African, or do they want something like that? It was something in that context, but then he ended up cutting me off, and he was just really generally disrespectful, and it was actually hurtful coming from somebody who should know better. He should know better.
I didn't experience it, but I can, from what it sounds like, right? And I'm only saying from what it sounds like because I wasn't there. Okay, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what it sounds like is that he was triggered if that took place, and I don't know where that came from. But as a person who tries to bring about healing, I would also say that the fact that took place is not the general way that people in these spaces conduct themselves. But again, as I said earlier, we remember those things that hurt us, and those things that hurt us stand out a bit more. I remember one time I fell off a roof. Yes, I fell off a roof.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, and I thought I was gonna get up and walk away. But my leg got caught in the ladder's rungs. So when I got up, I thought I was gonna continue to work, but all this pain and weight went to my right leg, and that pain I felt for like a week. My wife told me, "You got bruises all over you." I didn't feel any other bruises. The only bruise I felt was the bruise that hurt the worst. When that aspect healed of me, I started feeling the other things. Even in like counseling, when you have people come here, they can have one major issue. Maybe it's like infidelity. Nothing else. There's no other problems in the world. Until they figure and sort that out and start their process of forgiveness, now all types of problems. I don't have any problem. They'll tell you, I don't have any other problems. There's no other problems. There's nothing. Until they start to work through that problem, that pain, that hurt. And they start telling you all types of other problems that they didn't even pay attention to. So what I'm saying is, in essence, that is not the general consensus and the general way that people deal with each other in these communities. I'm not saying the brother did it. You are saying he did it. I just can go with that. But I do understand why someone would on both sides again. I understand why people will be protective and defensive in FBA. I think that they've been set up, but I do understand what they're trying to protect. But the problem is the thing that they're trying to protect, from my standpoint, understanding in the way that things are written, is a mythology. It's a false. It's a lie. You can go about reparations, even quote unquote lineage-based reparations, without all the other things, including changing the name.
Well, I agree, but there will need to be some kind of maybe African American or African American
is it. African American is it. No, people like you use African American. If you want to use Black American, you just have to define it. You have to define it wherever you use it. It doesn't matter. If you say a thing, you have to be very descriptive on what you mean by that thing. If I was to go and do a study today and I said FBA, I would have to define it. If I was to use African American, I would have to define it. But most people, I'm saying majority, already know that is an ethnic group here in the United States. Now, if somebody politically doesn't want to use that term, I understand it. I do. And if he wants to use the word African in America, I understand it. But I do get that different approaches can sting. And even my approach is sting, and I can be as calm as I don't know what.
And that's why I like you, Doc. And that's why I've called in on your show. I haven't called in a while. Man, it's been a while since I have called in anywhere, because I actually have, like you said, you didn't want to debate and you don't want to do any kind of wild stuff. You don't want to be arguing with folks. But that was the kind of experience I was having when I was calling in to challenge these people, the Manosphere people, Cynthia G, and all these people. And I just literally got tired and didn't have the time or energy for it. And I haven't called in. I think this is the first time I called in several years. So that's a testament to you. But I mean, even if you called in on with Ankh and Dr. Mahat, they're gonna come kind of hard with it. It's not gonna be necessarily like this, especially Ankh. If you say no,
what happened?
We were here or something. We Black people, we were here. Look at DeSable in Chicago. Ankh's not gonna gently whisper.
No, he won't.
No,
and he won't with me either. But you got what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I even look back at some of the show. I said something about ethnogenesis. He was like, "What?"
Uh-huh.
What I'm saying is, though, is people engage differently, and that is a part of the healing process to know that. I'm writing.
It's sort of about knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them. No, you can't be
you have to learn
fist every encounter. Doesn't have to be combat, drag to the death.
But you have to understand. Okay, see, the problem is this: you have to know who you're dealing with. You can only be responsible for yourself. And everybody's, and I'm not putting anybody on lower, higher levels of development, but I'm saying is people have developed differently. And so people engage differently. People communicate differently. And some people are way more polished in the way that they deliver a thing, and others wish they could. And other, vice versa. It's just like I think what I heard Brother Unc say a few times is, to me, he said, see, you said it that way, and that's what I meant. He said, I said it again.
Yeah, see, you as a trained thinker versus somebody who just reads up on
stuff. We have to keep it real, though. Me as a trained person also realizes that most people aren't. And so we have to really, because people come to counseling every day, and if I communicate what their partner or their mother or sister or aunt or whatever is saying to one another, and typically they can't hear one another. But if I say it, they say, "See, that's what I was trying to say," but they just everybody doesn't have the same skill set. So but that's also part of the process to understand that people communicate differently, and you still can say, "Hold up, brother, that felt very disrespectful." You know what I mean? You can still set your boundaries. You can still say, "Please, I appreciate if you don't talk to me like that." And we don't have to throw people. Look, for example, they've been calling me all types of names, but I have some. I can throw some mud. Literally, I can. I could be real good at it.
From Baltimore, of course.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying I don't take a pop shot here and there. If you look at me holistically, I'm not gonna. You're not gonna see me. Look, I'm gonna have to be really, really touched to really start making memes of people and calling them words and names and all of that. I might be a little intellectually interested. I might frame something in a certain way, but I'm not going to denigrate my brothers and sisters with words and memes, even if they're doing it against me, because my goal is not here to win. It is to help us heal.
Right. That's something to note, chat. That's something to note. When people are really interested in healing, trying to get to the truth and not trying to win and be right, they tend to have more of the disposition that the doctor has, and maybe that I have, maybe in a certain way. So that's what I'm saying. All the combat that I see, and maybe even Dr. Ma'at to a certain extent, wanting to do all the time, just because somebody disagreed. There's a such thing as healthy debate. That's what the term is there for. Healthy debate. It's about testing out ideas to get to the best thinking and therefore the best outcomes. Not trying to win and be right. It doesn't always have to be about a show and who can be the most insulting. But that's where we are.
But again, so I hear you saying Unc and Dr. Mayat and so forth and so on and all that.
I could name others. I'm just.
I know, right?
I found you from her channel, by the way. This is how. And I think you were debating Unc and Reggie.
No. Oh, you started from that time. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I found you.
Okay, I didn't know it was going to be a debate, but it kind of that did go down. But what I will say is as incumbent upon us to understand that people have different ways of communicating and different levels of tolerance and all types of things. So what I'm saying at even people who feel like Unc could say something different, Dr. Mayat could say something different, myself could say something different. Some people here saying I'm too damn soft. You got what I'm saying? So it at the end of the day, one, I do think there's different approaches and there's different needs for approaches, but I do also understand that we should be intentional and we all have room to grow, but we also will, in our own development, understand that people are never going to respond quite like we think they should. And that is part of the healing process, because you're asking the questions, and I'm in that question about what do we need, and I'm suggesting to you that even you, I would argue, and me, because I get mad too, like, oh, you know what I'm saying, like they ain't said nice. Get what I'm saying? Like they haven't been nice with me in the FBA streets too much, but I get that that's where they are now. But I have heard, I can't lie and say I haven't heard any transition, even in those who called me names. I'm hearing them say some different things. So what I'm saying is, even if you don't like the way that people say stuff sometimes, we can almost expect that people will respond how they respond in the best way they can respond at that moment. And we decide how we engage from there. But not to cut everybody out because they don't respond the way that we would respond. I think that's very necessary in order for us to accomplish what you're speaking about. So I'm charging you, my dear sister, to be a part of that process, to understand that, yeah, you know what, everybody ain't really smooth with it. Some people are a little rough around the edges. Mm-hmm. But in that rough around the edges, it's important for us to do some deep breathing and say, what is this person really trying to say though? Because lots of times, I'll be honest, people really take Unc wrong and they think he don't know nothing. I know he knows stuff because I am able to listen to him and get past what how academics do it, or how this one does it, or whatever. You know, like people sometimes we can miss the fortune because we got caught up with the outside shell. Mm-hmm.
I don't do that, by the way. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Aunt's a guy who read up on stuff. He does have some valuable and useful information. Mm-hmm. I think it can be even more useful if he doesn't go to combat with every point that he needs to make. And I think he does that. I think Aunt's an Uber driver or a cab driver, something like that.
I don't know.
A lot of those guys from Sonetta's channel, they're like Uber drivers, cab drivers, janitors, and they read up on stuff. And they do have valuable information.
Hold up now. Hold on. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that you that I don't know what the brother does, but I don't want to feel like I'm taking shots or anything like that. So I don't know what he does. So and it's not any shot whether what anybody does. I'm not saying you saying it, but it could sound a bit passive aggressive. Not that you intend to.
Yeah, that's not my intention. But I was saying that to make a point that a lot of the guys who come from that point of view, they tend to be people who may have lower functioning jobs in this society. So they are free to speak in a certain way that someone based in an institution like yourself or on a corporation like myself may not be able to do. I think, and by the way, I see value in all of it. I've been in many different circles. I won't even get into my background. Been around all different kind of ideologies, points of view. I've heard it all and seen it all. And I'm sort of on an island because I'm seeing people sort of in their silos and polarized. And I'm somebody who can pull from a lot of the different points of view, but I'm sort of alone because I don't fully conflict with any particular with any one sector.
I do talk a certain way, and I intentionally, for the most part, I'm very intentional. That's part of my personality. But what's also a part of my personality is being straightforward. So I'm not necessarily the safest person. And what I mean is wherever I am, because if you're in my class, if I'm teaching, I'm going to say things that doesn't go with the textbook. Like even soon, I'm going to be talking more about some of the intersectionist ideas and ideologies that goes on in our community that is not serving us quite like FBA is not serving us.
I agree.
I'm not saying that there's nothing that we can't get from FBA, There was nothing we can't get from intersections. But the problem is all these the manosphere, black like I think that you can learn something from. There's some truth in all their pain, if that makes sense. But it's not the full truth. And so to dismiss someone FBA wholesale would be out of order, and dismiss somebody who considers himself an intersectionist wholesale will be out of order. But the problem is their way of seeing the picture is not complete, and it's very them against us in black and white, and very trauma responsive. It's a very trauma response type of approach. I mean, not a trauma informed approach. It's like I'm reacting, very traumatic reactive type of approach. And I actually, with my students typically really speak to these issues in our community that keeps us divided. And intersectionality is one of them. And I'm not saying like, hold on, let me keep going.
Mark Lamont Hill, Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah. So, Mark Lamont Hill. I heard my dear brother. Sometimes I think he's gone too far to the liberal left, and I heard him debating. See, because to me, I don't really get into the way I conceptualize these things. I don't really get caught up in the in the white patriarchy conversation, because I think we sometimes forget there's a white matriarchy, and there's that on both sides of the argument. You can find some legitimate concerns, but that's just not our concerns. And then we superimpose. I'm talking about even those of us males or men who've been trained in academia, especially in the social sciences, and especially psychology, counseling, social work, especially those fields. What will happen is we become undercover feminists, and we don't even know it, because we've been trained. It's been in all of our training that black men don't really have issues, and that black men it's very. And then you have people like Tommy Carey who started Black Man Studies. If you introduce that type of framework to the class, they feel like you just hit them in the face, and you didn't. He just showed you some facts. If you introduce them to somebody like a Cleonore Hudson Weems, who founded Africana Womanism, they feel like you hit them in the face with bricks. But all she's saying is, look, I get what you're saying, sisters, but I'm about the family, and in fact I like cooking too. So, so when that becomes a major issue, and then they'll begin to say, well, look, I don't like her because she's supporting the gender normative, like all these type of things.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, even myself who teach classes like diversity and multiculturalism and all these different things, that those who claim to be teaching, those people who complain to be the champions of diversity, actually aren't open for diverse ways of people existing. And so quite like FBA, who are very anti-Pan-Africanist, very anti-whatever, like anything, like, I don't care what they really say. You can say you're not anti this, but what are you doing all day? And then some would say, well, these are the extreme factions. No, this is the general faction. Most of you, when I talk to you, have these very extreme and angry dispositions about black people outside of this country and how they've done us wrong. If most people didn't come with those talking points, as if they had been I'm not saying there's nothing there to consider. Okay, let me be straight. The greatest point that I think that if they wanted to make the point, it doesn't even have to do with this what is it called, the reparations. I think it has more to do with, okay, when we are putting in policies and and we are going for grants or whatever, these type of things, let's make sure we carve out some special set asides, if we can, if it's legal, for Africans whose ancestors had, or more than likely had their ancestors came through the transatlantic experience in the United States. I don't see anything wrong with that, but I think that right there, like, let's say, like, there's certain job opportunities or certain things that, like, look, okay, yeah, let's be a little bit more specific about where these degrees go to, because for this reason. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that's all you have to do is be more specific, and they have to set up the qualifying factors for these particular degrees. You don't have to change a whole name to even do that. In fact, you don't. But just set up the qualifying parameters. Change the qualifying parameters. When you say black, what you mean is African American blacks who come through. You don't have to now, again, talk about Somalians' hairlines and Kwame Nkrumah's hairline and Patrice Lumumba's hairline, and you don't have to do all of that. When these people really fought for not just Africans on the continent, they also fought for Africans in the United States. And then, and I'm very skeptical about lots of things. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a person to jump on bandwagons. But the more that I look at what's going on in the Sahel states, I realize that there is a potential opportunity for us from a Pan-African standpoint there. So I thank you for joining me. Anything before you close? I don't know if I answered like your your very layered questions.
You did, and I think everybody's going to benefit. The chat, the people who are watching the replay. I would just say, in closing, where can Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists improve, and what criticisms that FBA make of Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanisms are true and grounded in fact, and what can we do psychologically to create some sort of mass counter-racist theater, as Dr. Welsing once said, to rectify things like when young Black children have dolls and dark-skinned dolls, and they associate all negativity things with dark-skinned dolls. How can we correct that kind of thing?
I think that's what, you asked that question earlier, and I think that's exactly the aim of African-centered thought. I think we go too far in that even at times. But I am an African-centered scholar, and when you think about those of the Asantes, the Amos Wilsons, the Patricia Newtons, even if you want to say Dr. Wells to a degree, when you talk about some of those who more, let's say, street level scholars, and really had the hearts of our communities, like the John Henry Clark, and a phenomenal scholar, and the Dr. Benz, but Dr. Clark and the Dr. Marimba Inez, this is what their life's work is doing, is really combating and trying to reverse these like the issue you see with the doll and low self-esteem and racial pride and all those type of things. So that is what African-centered thought, that is what we've been fighting. This is what Dr. Mayat does in her own program. She has a whole African-centered STEM program where she's saying, and also infusing African figures who actually contributed, not just when I say African, I'm talking about African American, African, whatever, all African descendant folk and their contributions to STEM. And you see that in psychology, and you see in where do we need to improve? I think that where we need to improve is, and I don't think FBA had, if you had to, again, I asked you earlier, what is a critique of the FBA has that is, I think they exaggerated things too much. And sometimes we don't understand things. I don't think that we understand that just because you show some anecdotal evidence of a thing, that is a real major concern. It's not to say that it's not something that we don't need to speak to when it happens, but many times we castigate, or we say that this is what Pan-African people say, and I know that's not what Pan-African people say. Well, that's not what African-centered people say. Now, they say enough stuff that I can critique within, but the things that I'm hearing from FBA lots of times is like, well, Pan-Africanists they do all their work out of the country. Like, what? Like, they don't really want to do work in the country. Like, in fact, I gotta give a shout out to Baba Imhotep, the Race First rally. Convention and all the work we're doing there. As far as and it starts here, but it's also international. Also, gotta give mad respect to my brothers from Elite and sisters from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. I gotta back up a bit and give some love to my Pan-African Liberation Movement family. I got the sisters and the brothers who the Watoto from the Nile. I'm sorry, Watoto Development Center, who's also doing that work that you spoke about and reversing that with that Clark, that the doll experiment thing. I gotta give this work is being done. I gotta give shouts out to the brother up in Chicago and Detroit. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about. Marcus Klein. So these, like, if you had a critique, I would say we have to do something with Umar, but now if you want a real critique, because too many of us are blinded by him. But really, in all actuality, most true Pan-African people, and I say true in the sense that who've been around long enough, and a lot of us got scooped up in the delusion or illusion of Umar.
I'm one of them.
And we had to heal from that. But the reality is, I've been fighting that fight, talking about Umar way back when before podcast was popular, when I was doing a podcast. So we have to also be able to like identify people like myself who can see these things, like from a psychological and personality, from a psycho personality perspective. I just kind of combined the word, but from a personality based perspective, because it's really easy for some of us to see people like Umar and Tariq and their commonalities and their similarities. It doesn't matter what banner you wear. People, I say, we in our community, we struggle from the desire to do something big and special. So what we do is we don't know how to separate our frauds from people who have flaws. And people that are frauds and fraudulent, more like a Umar Johnson, and I'll just say Tariq Nasheed and so on and so forth. We have a problem with seeing those people because we think in a polite and all these different people that mean us no good. In fact, even if they do, they can't, like for example, Umar he needs some attention. I mean, some serious attention.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
And I'm being real honest and coming from an empathetic place. He really needs some attention. And the fact that we will allow him to continue to make a muck of people and himself is problematic. Tariq Nasheed, I think I think Umar might be beyond attention, but I think Tariq Nasheed is beyond attention. He's beyond attention. The brothers and sisters who follow him, they're not. They're just misled, misguided, and we'll wake up. They'll wake up, just like people have waken up to Umar's shenanigans. It's not about the banner. It's about we need to heal as Black people. And lots of times what people from the FBA say about Black people in America, Black Pan-African people that are who they also identify from their framework as FBA, is that they don't do work in America. They do the work in America. Let me give a shout out to Davon Love and Leaders of Beautiful Struggles, Brother Lawrence and the sisters over there, and the reparations work that they are doing. And they are the ones. So they are the ones who fought back. A part of the people who fought back against what they did in Maryland here with the governor here, the Democratic governor Wes Moore, and the reasons why they were a part of the push to push the congressional caution to overthrow the veto, whatever the proper terminology is. And they do that work, and I support them, and they're Pan-Africanists. So now my major, there's always critique no matter where we are, but let it be a real critique. So a real critique is more of us need to be more serious about this. And I'm saying wherever we are, a major critique is we have to heal, because until we heal, we'll never be able to communicate and get along with people and know how to engage and set proper boundaries. We don't know how to do that. In general, as Black people, again, that's what I'm saying. That's another claim I heard from some of the from the FBA folk, that there's no, like Pan-Africanist people don't consider themselves Black. Like, where do you get that from? That is, I mean, I heard like your anecdotal. That is not a significant number of people. All the people that you know that's Pan-Africanists always say Black. In fact, let's go red, black, and green. Like, I mean, like, what is, again, I said Black is for what? Black. You know it. Go ahead. Black people? Black is for what?
Black people.
And green is for the what?
Land.
And the red is for the what?
The blood.
So we know that is more of the general consensus than this little anecdotal people lashing out and being hurt and all these different, but that is the consensus. That's what I'm saying. We have to learn how to look at the consensus of people rather than anecdotal examples that support the mess that they put in our minds. For example, we say things negative about, oh, Africans don't like us. And even those of us who consider ourselves Pan-Africans or African-centered and all that, but what happened is, because we've been hearing this and we go to an African brother or sister store and now they say, what? Get it? What are you doing? Like they might just be very direct, or it might just, they don't respond the way you think they should respond. And you say, you know what? They're right. If that's all it took, your frame just easily was corrupted. We have to realize just that, like when people say all women are this and all men are that, like it's the same thing. No, not all Black women aren't this, and most of them aren't. Black women don't cook. What are you talking about? Black women don't take care of their children. Who are you talking about? Black men don't take care of their children. Who are you talking about? They are those there, but this is not the majority of our makeup. Black people sell drugs. No, see, you begin to believe these things. See, FBA has a lot of FBA has very conservative talking points.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, I'm saying that it's easy to fall into the trap to believe these things when we don't know how to parse out and look at nuance. When we don't know how to look at nuance, we begin to believe the anecdotes. Like somebody was in here telling me like, oh, all these Black little girls are having babies. I'm saying, did you look at the statistics lately? That teen pregnancy is down. When we were growing up, you didn't even get, like, when we were growing up, we were having babies much younger.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you can even, like, if you really took the time to really step back and look at what's really going on, I mean, like, even if you didn't look at the data, you would notice that. When I was in middle school, girls was walking around, like a lot of women, they even had a school here called Paquin for young girls who were pregnant. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I have a whole different idea about children and all types of things. And yeah, I think that part of the issue we have, I'll just say, is that, like, we don't prepare people to be parents. We have to learn to prepare people to be parents. It's not look, we got people 50 years old that haven't been prepared and they're horrible parents. My mother and father were younger and they were much more prepared parents than people who just got age on them right now. So we have to prepare people to be parents.
Do you think African cultures prepare people to be parents automatically?
Traditionally, yes. Now, Westernized, depending on, of course, we know that there's, like you say, cultures, and there's different people who espouse certain values and principles and more Westernized. But traditionally, yes, prepare you to be parents, prepare you to be men, prepare you to be women.
Today?
Yeah, that's still aspects of that there.
So do you think people born and raised in Africa are better socialized just generally as a human being, more evolved and better socialized to be better people, better parents, better just everything than African Americans? No, I don't think that. I think that I know that's a trick question, but no, I'm generally just curious because I have an opinion and thoughts on that.
I think that there's people are conditioned. That'll be too general for me to speak. One, but two, is there things in Africa and traditional African culture, daggone right. Traditional ways of doing things, absolutely right. There, we're way more better prepared as human beings. And I'm not saying you have to go to Africa. I'm saying you could do that right here as an African in America, or African American, or Black American. I'm saying African-centered thought didn't stop on the African continent. That's what I am saying. I am saying that I know that me as an African American, African man, Black American, whatever one you want to call, besides FBA right now, in ADOS, I know I was prepared in an African-centered home, which prepared me to be a father. And my wife, yes, she's from Jamaica, and I know both of us we were our culture from our households were really, really influential on us. I had my first child at 21.
Oh wow!
So, but the thing is, because I come from a strong family, we didn't need no babysitters. We didn't have to worry about money. We didn't have to. I'm talking about not that my people's like got money like this. That we work together. There's no stopping you when you work together. These are African values, and this Western way of doing things is horrible. It is. Now, so what I'm saying is, there's African-centered folk and and adjacent, and when I mean just people down like our parents' generations, they were much more prepared than sometimes these generations that we have out now. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was perfect, but we do have to we have to deal with reality, and we have to this is my argument, we have to begin to deal with reality, and we have to deal with biology as well. Like children have babies because their bodies are made to have babies at that point. I'm not saying like there should be no values and things like that. I'm not saying people should have babies at 12 and nothing like that. But what I am saying is we have to prepare our people and our children. And I work with too many people who have been lied to through these Western frames that now they're 30 and 40 and now they like, I didn't have the chance to have a child. And then will I ever have a child? Should I choose a child? Should I choose a sperm donor? So it's these Western way. I'm not saying any of that is bad, but what I am saying is we're gonna have to think some things. I'm not holding. So what I'm saying is I'm not suggesting or judging anyone who goes through those different routes. But what I'm saying is these routes should not be the culture that we find ourselves in. They're not. We need to rethink these things.
Have you been to Africa?
Yes.
Where?
Sudan, Egypt.
Sudan and Egypt? How long were you in Egypt?
I was that 2 or 3 weeks? All at the same time, though.
Did you go with the guy on Sonetta's channel, Jabari, or like one of those tours, or Asha Kwesi?
Yeah, I did go with one of those people, but none of those people there, though. I did go with a guy, the African-centered person, and all that type of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably the best way to go. Do you have a lot of contact with Africans? Like, do Africans come by your store, and are they involved in what you're doing there in Baltimore? It depends on what you call African, but from the continent.
Okay, so I do have engagement with African brothers and sisters, and people do support our store to varying degrees, and more so. You have Africans and second generation Africans, but then you also really have a lot of Caribbeans or people who don't like people who are actually operating what they call African American culture, that are Caribbean and things like that. So yeah, we have a multitude of people who support us. Now we have food, so that's easy. So I mean, but can so that would not negate the fact that we can't do better as a collective people. I don't want to glamorize things, because even within the group I think we can do better. Yeah, so So it's not that difficult for us to have, because we have food, and it's Jamaican and American soul food. So we're going to get a bit of a gamut, because the name of the restaurant is Diaspora and Soul Jamaican American American Fusion. So that's not that difficult for us. Now, I have people but we also have to look at this thing percentage wise. I also have people who come to the services that we have that are from East and West Africa. So like we have men's group. You understand what I'm trying to say? But I think when we think about these things, we have to look at them in a realistic sense, right? When we think about how much the population of African people actually make up a part of this country, we can't expect that half the people are going to be African, right? Because not half, because they make a very, very small percentage of people that's here, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we don't get the majority.
4 million immigrants of African and Caribbean descent.
Right. And then you compare that to the size of the African-American population. I'm talking about African-American ethnic population, that we know we're talking about when we say it. Mm-hmm. We know that's still a small number. So we have to look at it in relation to that, because sometimes because we don't really do good data analysis, statistical analysis, what happens is we expect more. It's like I have so many arguments, but I can go many places that I think we need to really begin to understand statistics. And I think that's a weak spot for us. And I'm not just saying on how to read a bar chart or read something, like really understand the concepts. You don't even have to be good at math to really understand statistics. It wouldn't hurt, but I want us to become more statistically, and this is a question. This will be one of the answers to your question. If we became more statistically astute, it would be more difficult for us to be played against one another, because we won't be expecting things that are more than probable, if that makes sense. Like, you're not going to expect like half Africans and half African Americans in this place, and they make up such a small portion of the population. Just like people like, I don't see no Africans in my neighborhood. What do you mean you ain't see no Africans in your neighborhood? You're not going to see like a whole bunch of Africans in your neighborhood. You do have Africans in your neighborhood. For example, next to my mother and father is African. Across the street from me, there's an African. And then also, it's very difficult, second generation sometimes, to know who was from Africa, because because the things that you see, sometimes we're looking at people and we're like, oh, they look African. They don't. But I promise you, when people integrate into other people, into the culture of the African American population, the way you look at them, they don't look the same. Because it has to do with, you think it has more to do with their phenotypical differences, that some exist, but the reality is it has a lot to do with the way they walk, the way their mannerisms. Because you'll see a person like, hold up, I thought he was African, but he's not African. He's from Africa. Well, he's not African from the continent. He's an African American or Black American, or if you want to call it FBA. And or you might see a brother or sister from the continent, because they move different and talk different, especially second generation. You wouldn't know, because they talk different, they move different. We think it's all about how they look. It's not like that. It's just like culture does a lot to the way that you see people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. People thought Umo Ali on YouTube, and I haven't seen him on in a while. I think he dropped off about the same time I did. People thought he was African, but he's African American.
That's it, right? And like, and then they show these pictures of, look, they're not us. Like, come on, bro, that's whack. They're not us. Look at them. Look at their hairline. Look at this. Look at that. Like, come on, man. Well, you're going to this is that poor evidence that they put out there, and they won't show the many pictures that look like, for example, somebody might say Ibrahim Traore doesn't look like an African American. He has the scar, but he definitely would, especially if he looked different and he walked different, and is a lot. Like, you can see, like, it's very, like, for example, Caribbean brothers and sisters, sometimes real hard to tell, but you know there's a certain walk sometimes, and then you be like, oh yeah, you Jamaican, but then you see that same walk because a black brother and sister is from here, but they practice Rastafarianism. You think that they Jamaican or they from Ethiopia or something like that because they move and talk a certain way. It has a lot to do more than how they look. See, we look at these things in very childish and simplistic ways. So we go and look for things to support the ideas that we have in the fears and in our political agendas and all these things that aren't real. But I understand why people fall for them, because we are not politically, and I'm going to also again say statistically aware. So I will argue that we need to become more statistically astute. And I'm going to wrap it up here, family.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for all your time. I didn't get the answer about, I think there needs to be another serious study, and you would know more about how to do that than I in terms of the DAW.
What was the answer?
I was asking about, can we get like another study where we can boil it down to pill form, make it scientific, that to reverse that. So if they do that study, give the black kids doll, and they associate all negative things with the black doll, and we do a study and then reverse that, put some psychology, sociology, whatever on it, and then come up with a scientific answer to reverse that. I'm not aware that that's been done.
No, I'm certain it has, but and there's also been some replicas of that particular study as well. But even if it hasn't been done in that fashion, there might be some scales taken. Like I know some of the work that Dr. Maat does. She does post and pre and post tests, and it's actually statistically some statistical difference there.
Okay.
And they're saying, in other words, that it shows that by utilizing an African-centered framework of educating people, it shows. I mean, it's all types of research out here. In fact, when you think about it, like that when you utilize African-centered educational models, it helps with self-identity, it helps with esteem levels, it helps with mental health, and all types of things. It helps with gun violence, it helps with drug addiction. So there's all types of studies that show and support that an African-centered model is beneficial. So that's why I go back to the reverse of it, is that we are already doing the work. When I said that groups like PLM, who has the Watoto Development Center, groups like ours who teach, we deal with like the adults and even the children and different things. These models work. These models won't be supported supported financially by the majority population, and that's one of the major issues. Now, I didn't give too much critique on FBA. I gave more critique on Pan-Africanists because, I mean, of course, people think I will critique FBA, but one of my major critiques with FBA, I'll just give I gave some critique just naturally in the conversation, but one of my critiques would be that this American, like, culture, the cultural component has shown to be very beneficial to I'm talking about African-centered culturalness, and the fact that we've been taught to hate Africans already. This is not nothing new. I just want to be clear that the Pan-African perspective is not the majority perspective. By default, many of us actually have some of that, a lot of the anti-Black, anti-African sentiment. At least half of us. Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes with them. I'm going to be doing a presentation coming up that speaks to that, the different levels of the sentiment from the different groups, continentally and also diasporically. So yeah, I think that we need to really know how to research, and part of research is really to go and look at the data and everything. When everything's not going to show, it's not going to always be in your favor, no matter if you're Pan-African or not. And if it was, then it'd be a problem, because we always have work to do. the day that we won't have work to do is the day that we reach the promised land. And I promise you, the promised land ain't gonna come.
The promised land for me is irrevocable sovereignty, starting with Africa, but extending to all African Black people all throughout the world. Just like white people don't live subjugated anywhere they are on the planet, except by other white people. I want African people to never, ever even be able to be subjugated ever again.
Well, I
irrevocable sovereignty.
See, so that's why I said it'll never come. But I'm not saying that we won't become sovereign. But we, as Dr. Amos Wilson and so many people, and I think you would agree, that we're going to have to continue to struggle. We're going to have to continue to protect. We're going to continue to fight for to make sure it's not to do our best that is not it's
be revoked, take it away again.
Yeah, that is irrevocable.
Yeah,
the fight is always on. You know, it's not like you reach it and then you just say, okay, we've reached it.
Well, you know, I say we're going to have our guard up forever, through all time and eternity. Even if we take some sort of an evolutionary leap because of AI, we got to have guards up there. No, it's on forever now that this has happened to us. So once we get ourselves, and we will. I tell people, and I'll say this and then I'll close. If I had gone to a surf in Europe and told them, just you wait, there's this thing called whiteness is coming. I'm telling you, you're going to be able to just go and show up and they're going to treat you like the noblemen and the lords. A surf in feudal Europe, they wouldn't have believed me. They couldn't have even conceived that there would be this thing, white supremacy. So the idea that we can't achieve sovereignty again, it seems it's daunting, but it's possible. It's possible, and not only do I think it's possible, I think it's likely. I think something's going to spark African people. Spark revolution. Something's going to spark.
You have evidence. You have evidence that it's possible within the human population. You don't have, so it's not. You know, we know that people can gain their sovereignty. You have historical examples of that. And I think that one of the major critiques would be that FBA doesn't believe that. So they say, well, we just want what we deserve here. And you all can believe in that dream called Pan-Africanism. And I'm going to thank you for your time.
Okay.
Coming in and keeping me going and being very, I enjoyed the discord. I mean, the conversation. And I'm going to just go ahead and hit this right here to kind of cap off.
Real quick, when you do your talks on Sunday, can you just talk and then have people comment at the end? Because when they're interrupting, sometimes it's hard to follow what you're saying. But that's just me.
Oh, you know, are you fine? I'm changing Sundays up. I'm going to be doing Zoom, because all of this going on right here. I'm going to be doing Zoom, so I'm probably going to be working on it tonight. But I didn't know you tuned in on Sundays. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a Zoom link. And because the goal is actually to have people come in and talk as well. It's not inside the room. We just haven't mastered that yet. But I appreciate you giving me that. I do like the engagement of hearing others and where they are, though.
Yeah, after you get your point out, and then there'll be more for people to engage in and about. But it gets disruptive, and you're not able to get your thought out, and you're. So that's just me. That's just me.
Okay.
We're lucky to have you. You're a gem. Hotep Drewski or not, I am glad that you are in the world and on your mission. This is your calling.
Well, thank you. I said if you haven't been made a meme of, you haven't done anything.
Yep.
Blessings.
All right. Good night.
And in fact, let me tell you something. Pan-Africanism is the only movement that has ever threatened our oppressors. And you're looking at a reality in time and history where Pan-Europeanism, Pan-Arabianism, and Pan-Asianism is flourishing. White folks go to Europe and make these international agreements. NATO is Pan-Europeanism. The World Bank and the IMF is Pan-Europeanism. But you're going to fight.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
In the spirit of Dr. John Henry Clarke, Pan-Africanism or perish. And guess what, family? The beautiful thing about Pan-Africanism is, I guess I'm getting tired, y'all. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. They're going to be like, look, he can't even say Pan-Africanism. But, you know, the beautiful thing about it is that it can be inclusive of, and it is inclusive of African-Americans, those who ancestry descend from Africa and via the transatlantic experience, aka the Ma'afa, the experience that has happened in America and still goes on today, is and is a part of it. Until next time, family, listen to these closing words from our dear elder. Don't let people twist up what our ancestors and the elders and our greatest minds have said. Listen to the club track from Baltimore with our dear scholar, Baba Dr. Amos Wilson, because he says this.
Get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Become a part of it. Embrace it. Become a part of it.